Okay, and it says we are live. We got a bunch of people out there.
Cool.
Let's try to scroll back up here a little bit. Looks, we've had people waiting for a while here.
Oh, good.
Catfish and Dreams, Brandon out there. Mike Sampson. Hi, Sampy. How you doing? Great to see you. Avid, of course. We got Kelly Bullock, the Bullock Experience. Sharp, my good friend Sharp. There's a young man, Epic, that learned a lot of fishing from YouTube and things like this. So great job for him. There's my Creole brother, Creole Catfishing.
Sweet. And I'm going to try to get on this so I can read the stuff, and hopefully it won't mess this up.
Perfect.
Because I'll try to mute this. There we go. So we don't have a reverberation.
Perfect. Got Georgia. My wife, Dee Smithy, is out there.
Not going to work. Well, yeah. I think.
Okay. Jason Lamb.
It's still playing.
Catfish Cameron, who was a lucky winner out there at the conference today. Will O, great to see you. We saw you at the conference. Chat was just flying there, Epic, when you were finished.
Oh, yeah?
You know, great job. Everybody was just sitting there with bated breath. When you were speaking, chat was flying before you started speaking, and chat just kind of went.
Okay,
it just kind of slowed down. So people were listening. I heard people with notebooks. We got my friend Justin Slyman Scales. Maurice is out there coming in.
Great.
We're up to 41 people. We've been on for 2 minutes right now. We got 41 people in the house already. Thank you all so very much. If y'all could do me a favor and try to remember to hit that thumbs up at some point today. Hey, Fishing with Big Mike.
Well, at least we don't have a giant time limit tonight.
Okay. Yes, I heard y'all are going to be doing some outdoor activities this weekend. Is that correct?
Some what?
I heard you're going to be going out yourself this weekend.
Yes, finally. It's cabin fever time, and it's you know, it's just Katie bar the door. We're going, no matter good, bad, or ugly. We're doing it.
Fishing with Big Mike, Muskrat Adventures, my friend Roger out there. You did a great job with him the other night. That was awesome. Rob Wixer, Mike Irvin, Fishing with Paula Smith. Hey, there's my granddaughter, Maddie May, 11 years old, and her PB is 30 pounds already, and she can't wait to catch that next big one.
Nice.
Okay.
That's great.
Mike Chavez, Greenwell. Okay, so 47 people. They're just going to keep coming, and we'll just go ahead and get started real quick.
That makes it fun. Well, you want to give the special announcement?
Sure. We are going to have another guest with us coming up here pretty soon. I think he's on his way. He'll be joining us very shortly. And it is going to be Epic's cohort there. Sean, Catfish Heroes, will be joining us very shortly. So can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome to have him up on the show with Epic at the same time. So we're looking forward to that. And there's Justin's Fishing Fetish. Thank you. Thank you. I want to cover just a couple of quick things. There were some things that I've noticed people have been talking about since you've been passing out a lot of this information. One of the things was today you were talking about it, and we can kind of break it up into two things. You were talking about the neutral and the active position for flatheads, and even for blue cats. You were talking about as far as undercover and then moving out, and then also for blue cats when you're marking it on electronics.
Yes.
When you see the blue cat nose down, the active position. Yeah. So can you expand on that a little bit, just so people understand it better?
Yeah. With the newer electronics that we have, they have multiple beams. The old style stand, like when I was like 20, 25 years old, they were basically single beams. So this multiple beam stuff allows these fish finders you can see position a lot better. Like if fish are up like this or they're down like this, they actually trail out at the tail a little bit more bulbous at the head. Now you got to do a little fine tuning, but once you see that in the down imaging, not sorry, the 2D, not the 3D down imaging, but the 2D. That's like the old style simple, but it still has more stuff that's giving you more information. So when I'm seeing just a flat fish, that doesn't tell me anything. It could be active, but most likely going to be neutral or negative, especially if they're up off the bottom and just sort of sitting there. Everybody's seen the blue cats in the in the Bass Pro Aquarium. The one going like this, the one going like this, the one just running around. They're not doing anything. The one sitting on the bottom. It's the one with his head down, the tail up that I like to see. I get excited about that. I get more or less a little bit of satisfaction, a little bit of we're about in for it. We're going to be in for it. So I get a little more excited on the anchor. I just get a little bit more excited about it because I see that, and because every time I see that, it usually pays off in big fish pretty much right away. It's not a big long wait. It's pretty fast. I've actually scouted areas like below wing dikes before my clients got there, and if I saw active position, I would just tell them right away. And see, it's always kind of bad manners to tell a client or a group of clients that they're going to be on giant fish and then have it not happen. But I was so confident I could say, okay, you drove 250 miles, you guys are in for it. You're going to see something you've never seen before. And they'll be like, how'd you know? Because I just went and looked at them. So they're not going to be ready until it's dark, but we're going to be on those fish because they're not going anywhere until quite a bit after set up on these active fish. Now, every once in a while they'll shift or move, but that doesn't mean that they're going to just, it's going to die. And I do monitor it with, okay, if the water level, if they don't shut that dam off, or the water level doesn't go, if it's like I think it's going to be, look out. And the time when that happens, it's like epic anchor time.
Okay, let's see.
I've seen flatheads do that too. I've seen flatheads because I know it's not blues, because up here where I fish flatheads, we don't have any blues. So when and channel cats are generally small, so the only thing we have that are going to go head down, tail up, or say this is a wing dike right here. Here's the slope. If they're pointed into it, basically like this, and they're big, they're flatheads. So I see that more rare than I do blue cats. But when flatheads are like that, I get excited about that too, because I know it's donkey time when that happens.
We love the donkey.
Yep, those guys from Ohio got me saying that 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I've never quit saying it. I was kind of careful in the beginning of YouTube because a lot of people would be like, huh? What's he talking about? We haven't seen anything. So I was all about the donkey stuff until, because to me, I've been talking catfish a long time. We just got done talking about this before we came on. And a lot of times, if you're talking to somebody, just face-to-face talking, they don't know you, you don't know them, you start talking about catfish, and I start telling tales about 70-pound flatheads and 100-pound blues. They go, yeah, okay. But get the phone out and whip the pictures out, and they're like, oh, my God, let me see that. I've never seen something. So it's a total different thing. Know that you're not the average fisherman that's just blowing tall tails their way. So, yeah. Well, anyway, Catfish Heroes is here. I see him.
Hey! What's happening? I'm watching stuff today. Excellent job. Excellent job. Awesome. Hey, what's up, Stan?
Hey, my friend Sean, how you doing?
How we doing?
Great to see you.
Yep. There you go. Yep.
Awesome.
You got me now. Their wives are there watching us too. They're actually going to make some sort of short appearance somehow. So I don't know if they're just going to jump in behind us or what. And they're going to tell everybody how to catch giant sturgeon off the coast of Madagascar. I'm kidding. They don't. Andrew, my wife doesn't care about catfishing. She used to do that before she married me, and that's long time ago.
You know, on my way home, this is all like a brainstorm of me coming home tonight. I'm like, I saw Epic stuff today, and I saw you guys in the comments, and it was awesome. And it's like, you know what, we need to show the ladies behind all of this madness of just disappearing and going out there, calling them on day 3, going, yeah, we're on the Missouri Bank eating chicken wings, and I'll be home maybe Tuesday.
and we might be going another state away over to the Wabash before we get home. And so they put up with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I just put catfish bait on my wife's cookie sheets today. She doesn't even know it yet.
I know, we saw that. I want to get back to
go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, I was going to say, I want to just get back to one thing real quick. When you were talking about showing the pictures, I think that's one of the big things that has helped people return those bigger fish. You see a lot more people doing CPR because everybody's got a phone with them now. Everybody's got a camera with them. So they have the ability to take the picture, to have the proof of that monster fish. So everybody's pretty much has that opportunity to do that now. And I think that's helped with CPR quite a bit.
Stan, it's huge. It's absolutely huge because, back a long time ago, we used to have to take film pictures. And there was film one day, and a lot of the young guys are like, film? What do you mean? I'm like, yeah, we had to take pictures of our fish
and wait for it.
Sometimes there'd be a whole phone in front of it, or you got the stupid look on your face, or the fish jumped, and it's all. And now you can just look, but there was digital cameras in those days. So a lot of the guys that I used to fish with back in the day, I was like, come on, get a digital camera, dude, because they'd be waiting a week to get their photos back and all this. I'm like, just get one of those digitals, print it on your phone, do whatever. And
that was what Sean
uses his entire phone for.
What's that?
I said that's what Sean was just saying about waiting for you have to wait for the pictures to come back in. Is it a good picture? Is it not? So that's I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So Sean, you get Epic Catfish. What is that? What is that like? What is it? I mean, we see the videos and you see going out there. I mean, you were just saying, 3 days you're calling, hey, we're on the eating chicken wings. How do you prepare for something like that?
Yeah. Well, you just go out and do it. I know. I mean, he's the brains of he's definitely the brains of the operation. I'm just the comic relief, but no, he usually has a plan and we go out and do it. We both we're addicted to this trophy catfishing and we absolutely love it. He calls me up and there's not a chance I'm going to say no to him. No, I don't think I can make it. I would cancel anything to go fishing with this guy.
What do you think one of the go ahead.
Sean's been a godsend for me because not only did he talk me into getting into YouTube, but he's got the passion for catfish like I do. And we're all we just do whatever it takes.
I got a problem.
I got a problem too. I mean, I started saying it in my videos, our addiction to big. That's it.
Yep.
And he trudges through the Hennepin Canal, which is a small body of water, and you're stuck at the mercy of the catfish, but yet he goes anyway because you can catch a 50.
It's a war of attrition with us. We just keep hammering. If we get skunked one day, we're not going to get skunked again. And we just keep going. We keep throwing it in front of their faces, and we end up with a 40-pounder every once in a while, and we're so happy.
Yeah, and he takes his uncle.
That's what I do in my off time when I'm not fishing with Epic Catfish is I'm bank. And my girlfriend Kelly, she knows that's what I'm going to be doing. It's on my way home from work, man. I got bluegill.
I fish more days a week than
I do. I got bluegills in my bait tank bubbling next to my toolbox. I'm ready to rock and roll sometimes, man. I got just about the same setup as DMV has, except for there's two guys. I got those in trailers and bait tanks and rods, and we brought lights,
Now,
They do
How
catch and
much-
cooks right there with crappie and stuff. It's cool.
there's a group of guys out there. You got Roger from Muskrat Adventures and Skip Stewart from Clearview Outdoors, and
What's up,
Zach.
guys?
They've got that. They've got a little group. They do River Warriors, and they kind of
Yes,
feed
sir.
off each other's enthusiasm, and they've got that addiction too,
Oh, yeah.
where they're going to go out and get that fish. How big is it
Oh, yeah.
that for you, Epic, of having and Sean, you too, of having that other person that's got that same addiction as you? Does that motivate you more?
Yes, sir. And when you can go through the trials and tribulations before the magic happens, and the magic happens when you catch that. When you together have a team of guys that put in the effort, and then you pull in that huge fish, it doesn't matter really who reeled that fish in. It doesn't really. That's his fish or his fish. That's, man. We gel. We absolutely love it, and that's the reward. It's top fives. It's that moment we all live for.
And Stan, I've got a lot of old time, hardened catfishing crazy people, and they go fishing on goats, and there's not been one of them that said, "Hey, is that Sean guy going to go next time?" I really like it. They're like, "Hey, we want Sean to go." And so Sean, actually younger than me by just a few, but I mean, it's this group dynamic that's so good. I mean, of course we're catfishermen. It's not like we're constantly casting. We have time in between casts and in between things, talk about stuff, and we'll talk about high-end catfish stuff, like the real Zen stuff. We'll talk about the low-end stuff, happens at work, about all that stuff, and just have a great time doing it. But it's that monster hunt thing together.
Yeah. And there's an energy too that when you're on the boat and you're together, when you're not getting what you want from these catfish, you get a little sad or start questioning everything. Success is the biggest thing that makes us feel like we're geniuses in the end. But if you can actually have a friend out there or somebody, you can form and just kind of distract yourselves from the moment until that moment happens. Oh my God, it's so worth it, man. When I see people out doing these videos, they're out by themselves on an adventure or this and that, I'm like, oh man, it's such a shame. I would love to be with them,
Yeah.
And it's a different experience for the boat, because the boat, me at least, I put a ton of pressure on myself. I put as much pressure on myself as anybody, because I've been doing it a long time, and when the fishing's tough, I'm about the hardest on myself that anybody's ever seen, and it may kind of backfire a little bit for the people that are around me, because I am going to make it. I am there to make this happen, and sometimes it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean,
when you have the expectations it's hard to be so positive and keep your morale going, But it's good.
Pretty good.
You do. We do.
But I'm still good.
When you're not seeing what you want to see. I know. It's there. You're captain. This is the captain. But I've always known about him is he's been a guide, and I don't know that there's any more pressure that anybody could ever have as a fisherman as someone's giving you money to put them on fish.
They're harder.
I couldn't handle it. I would get skunked. I don't know. I could never do that, man. But that's what, as good as this is, because he's had that pressure for years.
I'm a complete nerd.
And I even said it. I even said in the chat earlier. I said I think Epic was a catfish in his former life. Well, I had to do work, and that I said in the comments today, watching the conference and watching how well he did, and I'm that you in, and he has his voice heard now, because before this YouTube thing, he was still a catfish psycho doing his thing, but there really wasn't a platform or audience anymore, and I'm glad you guys are tuning in this and really enjoy it.
Well, we definitely along with me. and experiencing those cool things and some personal bests and going to like the crazy waters and all that stuff. I mean, it actually helps me because I enjoy seeing you catch fish.
Dude, it would be an absolute shame to see this guy's his voice not getting heard, and you guys getting the platform. Thank you again, Stan, and all the love, man. Because they sit and listen to this guy, you're going to learn some stuff.
But one of the coolest things is to see the look on his face the first time he goes to Dead Man's Hole, or the first time he goes to the hunting spot. He looks around like, holy crap.
I'll tell you guys what is I would never in my life have the opportunity to go to these epic spots. I would never have seen these crazy, mighty Mississippi spots by myself. I mean, I can't thank this guy enough. Only thing I can do in my wheelhouse is to support him, turn him on, because he's got a fan base. You guys, really awesome, and that's the reward.
Let's get back to fishing. I can only take so much, brother.
Right on. Yeah, he doesn't want to get emotional. He's ready to go back into the catfish stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
and
Sean, this one is for you. This one is for you. Thank you, Sean. You can thank Catfish Heroes.
100%.
Hey, I just went fishing with great man.
Sean.
Here it is, you know.
So
what's up, Ryan?
Sean, that's how much people
What's up, buddy?
have respect. That's how much respect people have for you, also. So thank you so much for that.
Well, I'll tell you guys what. As I was a huge YouTube fan before Epic Catfish. I love Catfish. I watched River Certified, Spencer, and I mean, Ryan Redbeard. I know these guys. These are Flathead players right here, guys. They put in the time and the work. Jonathan from Hook Catfish, shout out to him. He was the first guy. I actually have a picture on my phone and how to share links back then. But I mentioned to Jonathan Hooks, I was like, "Hey, Jonathan, my friend has a channel now, and we catch some pretty big blue. You need to check out." And Jonathan, like, oh. He didn't understand how I typed it out. He didn't know what Epic Catfish meant, you know. And then all of a sudden, boom, he saw it, or it was. And the rest is history now, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I think we got in several conversations because Sean would say, dude, you got to go on YouTube.
Definitely.
And I was like, I haven't seen anything on YouTube I liked. He's like, dude, you're not looking.
You're looking in the wrong spot.
You know, because you type in certain stuff, you know, type in catfish or whatever, and you get like Indonesia people like dragging catfish out of holes.
Yeah.
You know, you get other really dumb things until you get.
Or they got like 500 3-inch. They've got like 500 3-inch catfish in a bucket or something. Yeah.
Or they're pouring Mentos down a hole, and these little tiny catfish are jumping out of the thing like this. And you're like, what is this YouTube stuff? And so he starts sending me links, and I'm like, dude, there's some serious people doing serious catfishing on YouTube.
No, it's been an unexpected thing to find the catfish communities. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the information shared between all us, we're all going to get better at what we're doing. I didn't know this. I didn't even know this community existed like 3, 4, or 5 months ago. You know, it's been so awesome.
Awesome for everybody. Hey, I wanted to say hello to a couple people real quick first. We got 12 Gauge Catfishing. J-Dog is in the house. Chrissy Brown, Charlie Hubbard, Jesse from Outdoors Egyptians, Dale Hayslip, Roger Anderson out there. I appreciate you coming in.
Roger.
Yep.
Okay, I think I got caught up. Mike Irvin, Mike Cole, if I missed you, I'm sorry. I get caught up listening and don't see everybody. But one thing we got here, we got a question from Greenwell Fishing. Ask Tim when I'm drifting and I see the fish swimming in my bait, but they don't bite. What is the thoughts on that?
That is the $1 million question. That's the situation. Frustrates us all because you can mark fish, you can be very confident that you're in the great spot, you can be very confident you have the great bait, you've changed and you've downsized and you've sized and you've zigged and you've sagged and you've done pattern A to pattern B. And those days that you're in those fish and they just won't tap around. Sean and I even experienced that on YouTube going down to the Tennessee River. Of course, it was cold water. I mean, we had tons of decent bites, almost just a rare hookup. And I get that. And Mike's probably talking about even in the summertime when, you know, you're amidst and you got your baits right where you need to have them, and yet they won't bite. And blues, for some reason, well, blues, channel cats, and flatheads will do it, but it just seems counterintuitive that a blue that is so voracious at times, that is so accurate as far as nailing baits and chasing stuff down. I mean, I've literally had blues follow shad that was from a slip bobber all the way from the bottom, all the way to the top, and nail it on the top. And what's that about? See that? You don't see it with channel cats. You don't see it with blue. I mean, you don't see it with flatheads or channel cats, but blues every once in a while be that aggressive. And you ask yourself, okay, what am I doing wrong? Until you're fairly confident everything is right, because you've done it before and it's always worked. And this is that 1 or 2 days or that 3 hours in a day that you just can't make a bite. I mean, I know I've done the same thing, Mike. We've done the same thing. I mean, he's been fishing with us long enough to see that.
Yeah.
You just look at yourself and you go, and we look at each other and go, what is the problem here? Bait's right, current's right, boat's right, everything's right, but yet we're not catching any fish.
Well, yeah, that's why I say it's that war of attrition. You go, I'm going to come back at you. Yep. You might skunk me today, or you're going to eat in the next 3 days. I'm going to be there when you do.
And that reminds me of something. I see that cycle. I've seen that cycle, and the reason being is that usually when I go south that far, I'm usually spending more than just 1 day or 1 afternoon. So I'll fish every day, and I used to fish every day for a week or even more. And so I would see that bite. That bite may start out when I get there way up here, aggressive. And then the next day it's a little bit less. The next day it falls nothing. And then for 2 days it's a no-go. And then it starts to fire up again. And then all of a sudden, because it seems it's a long wavelength like this. So on those bites, if you hit it right, like I did with Catfish Brothers, that one where we just
that was an epic trip.
And I said, oh, okay, you know, here's fish over here. And most of the time you can do that, but that's when the bite's on. And I've also been up there when you mark more fish and you can't hardly catch one during the day, especially. You know, they may tap or maybe you don't get a bite at all. But that one we catch fish. If we weren't up there very long, we roll down below the dam. We go to the spot. I mark the giant fish. We anchor up, throw the baits out. I'm talking to the kids. I'm excited. I do the 3 clap. 1, 2, 3. And boom, there comes a 130-pound fish. And then after that, because we reeled everything in, and then it was after fish, after fish, after fish. Okay, so great. So guess what happened the next day? It was still pretty, but not as good. Last day, terrible. That bite went from way up here way down here in the matter of 2.5 days. That's how it usually goes. There are very days that I go 7 days in a row, even when I was guiding. Besides the period, the absolute pre-spawn period with channel cats and flatheads, you can get on them. But that blue cat stuff seems to be really volatile. Is that your experience?
Yes, sir. And watch Epic Catfish. That's an awesome video. I mean, he puts the monster was in that video. He also shows them some of the most beautiful cast netting from Moon Eye and bait and just in the dawn, the sun setting. It's absolutely gorgeous. If people take time to go through and watch his videos, go back and do that. Spend the time, because there's a lot of information in these videos, and there's a lot of beautiful stuff in there. Nice fish too.
And you know, Stan, I didn't want to be the guy that came into YouTube and told everyone what to do. I just wanted to share information and the beauty of catfishing in general. I think it's a beautiful sport. I mean, I'm not saying that it's like the prettiest sport in the world, but I think there's a lot of inherent beauty to it. You know, even in the industrial areas that we fish.
Amazing.
So you've got that situation where I can find some beauty in pretty much anything, but especially if I'm catching monster fish. You know, monster catfish is kind of close to my heart a little bit.
Yeah, we're addicted.
Huh?
We're addicted.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people out there, and I think one of the biggest things that a lot of people want to know is they are doing all the basic stuff. You know, they're using the right baits and the right size baits and reading the waters and etc. What do you think that they can focus on to go from being the let's say that the average angler or the good angler to get to that next level where they're going after or catching?
Can I answer
Yes,
this one?
I was going to ask you to answer that.
You know, the ability of people and people know what they're doing. They have the correct baits. They're doing the right stuff. There is something to be said is for time on the water. Keep plugging at it. You're gonna keep plugging at it. This does not. I mean, it's not magic. You just don't have big fish flying in the boat every day. This is something you look. Okay, it does happen, but you spend time on the water, and then it's gonna happen. And you're always learning when you're out there, and you get these feels, and everything you do, everybody's doing the right thing. There's so much information now. People know what they're doing. It's about getting to the right spot and spend the.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of success depends on the water you have available to you as well. You know, because if you're on a tributary river from a main river, your population is going to increase and wane because pre-spawn, they're going to move from the main river, they're going to move into that tributary, and then when the post-spawn, they're going to start filtering back. So, you know, a lot of people say, hey, you know, and that's also true. Like, and Paula Smith reminds me of this. She catches some really big fish in the winter in which I would call a major river, but it's also a tributary river of the Mississippi, meaning the Ohio. And she probably knows from being fishing there a lot. Winter is one of the greatest times. And I've talked to a lot of my friends that actually fish that area down there. And they said, well, it's a current situation. So when those blues are looking for that slower current with deep water, they'll move into that Ohio River system to winter, and then they'll back out. And so it's that catfish movement that a person starts to understand if they want to target big fish or not, or if they just want to go fishing. But
Paula, she fishes her butt off too.
Oh, yeah,
she just doesn't roll up out there and slam big fish on the deck of her boat every day.
I'm not saying
I'm
just saying it's hard some times of the year.
To
definitely. Move into the Ohio, because there's a lot of people that fish the Ohio that are trophy catfishermen. They don't see those
100%.
But they see some more of it, and you can just see trends. You can see, because if people have catch big fish, if you're looking at websites or magazines or whatever, you start noticing, okay, this fish was caught at this time in the Ohio, but they're really not caught as many. They don't catch as many in the summer, or whatever. But then you see the Tennessee River system, which is totally different than what we have. Tennessee River is point is dam to dam, and a clock. It don't really move through it. It's like basically a giant riverine lake pool Paul's video was an 80-pounder. That's awesome. I can't wait to see it.
And plus those bodies of water, plus they have regulations too that help that.
Yeah, it does help that, and I think it's a great thing.
Oh, it's amazing.
And I'm never the guy, and neither is he, that says, well, of course they're catching big fish because they've got billions of them there. Big fish are big fish. Fishing's fishing, and you know what? You got to put the time in no matter what. I mean, the James River is a great place to catch trophies, but you got to learn your stuff. You got to be mobile. You got to do stuff. I mean, none of it for anybody. You got to put that time in and at least figure out some sort of plan or some.
How bad do you want it?
How bad do you want it?
You're gonna put the time in.
What is today? Today is Friday. Stand 3 has been out there on the James River 5 days this week already. There's been 5 days.
That's a catfish savage right there.
See, that'll get you places.
That's that catfish savage mentality when you get out.
If you keep your mind open, you pay attention to whatever's going on. It's almost like the catfish force. It's like I use the force, and we talk weird like this every once in a while. I'm talking weird like right now, but you're using your energy to flow what's going on and to understand and notice and put that in your memory bank. Because if you're just fishing, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're fishing to increase your chances at being able to go out there time and time again catching big fish, you got to pay attention to all of it. From the moon phase to the sun, the sunlight, the diurnal. I can go on and on about the yes, muskrat adventure. She is. Yeah, and there's a lot of you guys that are awesome. And I see Green Machine just got off the river. He was out with names.
He's been out with Stand 3 a bunch this week, so they've been hooking up a lot. Nice. I'm happy for.
That's awesome.
They're going to get some big.
I just wanted to say that before I even knew the people in chat like I think I do now, I didn't remember all the names from like the very first video that we put out. It's the same people, and it's awesome. Two Old Vets, he was just on there. All these people commented on our original video, and that's pretty good to have people that are willing to comment on a video on people that they have never talked to or met. I mean, actually pretty rare. It speaks to the character of the people that are doing it.
Yeah. Roger just put Muskrat Adventures. He just put Paula Smith's link up there, trying to get her up to 500 subs. Definitely the fish that she puts up on video definitely deserves to be up there.
Oh, yeah.
I've said that. That's one of the things that I've said is that what's great about having you and all the YouTube channels, Mike Greenwell with Bumpin' and Hagen Grove, and everybody's got some information. You take that information, put it towards your waters, and spend the time out there. Just mathematically putting the time out there, and if by knowing where to look from listening to people like you. To know that, that spot's not going to be as productive. This spot here, that spot there, and that spot there is going to be the most productive spots. Already you saved how much time by getting away from those spots that before you would have thought, before we started listening to people like you, we might have thought, maybe that might be a good spot. Well, no, this is why there's no current there. There's no depth. There's no, and you start picking those things up, and it's just amazing from there what happens.
Yeah. Definitely saving time by listening to guys that have trudged like he has for the last 30 years. If you listen to them and really listen to them, you're going to save yourself a lot of time.
But remember one thing, Stan. We listen to people as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I take if somebody has something to say, I don't care if it's for a year or 50 years, I will still look at it and say, okay, is this something that is worthy of me paying attention to? Because there's sometimes when things sound a little odd or a little off, but yet there's usually something to it. Because if somebody's consistently doing something, now, okay, a big catfish and 6 inches of water and a mud puddle off the third tertiary of the or if they're catching them on gummy worms or hot dogs, I still will have to say to myself, okay, that happened once, but what if I'm hearing that all over the country? What if I'm hearing that all over the Tennessee River? What if I'm hearing these crazy things where North America all the way down to South America? Because catfish are the same no matter what. If the wells are telling me they can clonk, I even went through that whole period where I tried clonking on flatheads. It doesn't happen to work like it doesn't on wells, but it's hard to prove that it doesn't work. It's just one of those things. Cats are on fire on Wiley.
A wise man once told me, time on the water will be your biggest helpful tip I can give you. I didn't understand then, but I get it now.
100%.
Yep. And how much you want to pay attention.
Now, we were talking about, we'd been talking about earlier this week about, we're kind of coming out, especially the middle and the southern states are going to be coming out of this wintering a little bit quicker.
Oh, what a blessing.
Yeah. For them.
So we were talking about some of that. What can y'all put out about that?
There's going to be a lot more when they're going out and trudging. I mean, God, when I watched that the other day, I was at whose tournament was that with Parker Pursuits and Mo Creek and all those guys are out. That was on
Fishing with the Chad. I was out that day. Yeah.
Yeah, with Chad. Yeah, definitely. I sat and watched that most of the day, and those guys are out there. And I know Parker Pursuits and Mo, it was like a -5 out maybe. And I was looking at what they were wearing, and I was like, oh, my God, they're dying out there. But they were slaying them, you know. Yeah. That was what was keeping them warm.
So to get to what I think your question is angling towards, Stan, is that, okay, what do they have to look forward to now that they're coming out of that winter preservatory period?
Yes, right. And what can they do? What can they do now to get ready for that coming?
Okay, so at this point, let's talk about not really the deep stuff. Like, all right, you're on the East Coast, and the East Coast before our stuff by about a month. And there's only one reason for that is because the temperatures are so much warmer. As far as, you know, we'll move out. The sunlight's generally, if you look at in Illinois and Virginia, we're basically on the same lateral line here. Okay, so, but I have experience going out to the East Coast at, you know, during this period of time. So it seems that you'll still find the blues somewhat near their preferred wintering areas, but they will venture shallower, okay? And they'll actually feed higher. Every time the temperature ticks up, they need more and more food because they are cold-blooded creatures. So their metabolism rises with the temperature. So it goes up, and as it falls, it goes back down. So they need less food when it's down, more when it's up. So, you know, in the wintertime, that's why it's so full, because they just keep putting it like a Pez dispenser. I mean, it just get like it just.
I do the same.
So, you know, so I mean, they keep eating because they have to, you know. It's just one of those things. It's a live or die thing in the winter because they could go a long time. It's like the camel deal. Camel supposedly drinks a lot of water and stores it because they don't know when they're going to come up with any, you know, whatever, more water. So let me fast forward because I don't want to bore everybody with all those details that I have in my head. Let's go to what they're going to get into now. If you're on a big river, you're all of a sudden going to want to go towards more current. Okay, that's the biggest thing between the preservatory and the beginning and the pre-spawn. And it doesn't matter if it's flatheads, channels, or blue cats. They're all going to go from fairly sedentary current sort of situations. They're going to gravitate towards more current. It's a fast lifestyle. They can ambush prey fish easier. They can basically hide, and this is something, but there is a disguising feature about current. I just touched on it, where you have bait fish that send out vibrations, catfish detect, and that they don't detect. They're even hidden more in faster current because those vibrations are even way less likely to bounce back to that prey fish. So it's almost like the kind of cloud of the prey fish. So a lot of fish love to gravitate towards current, especially blues that key on those deep water bait fish.
Okay. So that is that's part of the reason why smaller baits in the winter, bigger baits as it gets warmer.
Yeah. And by the time summer hits, that's, you know, because I don't get out the big donkey baits unless I'm fishing blue cats in a lake like we're going to fish here in a couple of days, because they're basically stranded in this lake, and there's the big ones will get competitive if they're, you know, putting hot water into the lake. Big baits are going to eliminate small fish. That's the only reason I would use them. But I'm not going to like throw out 8 baits this big and drag them for miles, I'm going to throw out a few baits like that, see if that helps or works. Plus, it's fun.
And Roger said, Muskrat Adventures, is that why the rattles attract fish, the vibration?
Yeah, and there's a bunch of different theories on that. Actually, there's not a whole lot of complete scientific proof because the rattles are irritating than those low frequency. And if anybody's watched the Discovery Channel very much, sharks are very attracted to low frequency. That's bait fish moving, doing all this stuff. And even in the water, I can do my hand like that, and I will send off low frequency vibrations. Rattles are more high, frequency vibrations. But the theory is that those sound waves still pique their interest. At least it's not like it sounds just. It's that it piques their interest. So maybe they were going this way, they hear the rattle, and then they go, "Ooh, what do we got going on here?" Because they're investigating. Just like a shark, they are the sharks of fresh water. That's just all there is to it. I mean,
yeah. It's funny because a lot of times
sharks fish.
A lot of times you fish similarly for the two.
You do. Look at those baits that you were holding up earlier. Those are huge.
Yeah, that could be a shark fish using that same bait. Yeah, what's up?
I mean, yeah. I mean, when you look at the hooks and then the baits, 100%. On my way home from work tonight, after watching Epic stuff, I had a little brainstorm, and I kind of thought that probably meet the girls, the ladies behind Epic Catfish, the girls that sacrificed us being missing and all that. And I brought her over here. They did not want to come and do this, but I want them to sit in these chairs and ask them a couple questions.
Yes.
While him and I take a break.
Yes.
You need to ask the ladies of Epic Catfish
they're
some questions. Oh my gosh, she came home. She's like, "Oh, my hair is not done. This and that." I go, "Oh, too bad. We're gonna go on Stan's show. You're gonna do your 5 minutes right here." So, Stan, I hope you have some questions for Kelly and Andrea.
And you know what else, Stan? At least my wife has to pay for this one. She scheduled a tap appointment tomorrow during the best weather we've had in months.
Come on, girls, let's get over here.
Yep.
Get over here and talk to Stan for a minute.
Yep.
Okay, while we're waiting for them, we got DMV that came in the house. What's up, DMV? Mo Freak, I saw out there. Paula's back in. I think she's leaving.
Yeah, no, we're gonna come over your shoulder.
If y'all have any questions, for the ladies, feel free to put them up, and I'll do the best I can to get them out.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you. How about on my side?
We can hear you.
We can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So, how do you deal with this epic monster catfish? We got to go get them. Got to be a lot of us have that same kind of, a lot of our wives are dealing with some of that same thing, just not quite to the extreme.
Well, I think Andrea gets to deal with it a bit more than me, but yeah.
It's always been there. It's not something new that popped out of nowhere. He's always done that. So I've just always known it, I guess.
Learn to accept it.
Yep.
Yeah. We got a bunch of people that are, Maddie Mae, that's my granddaughter, saying hi, ladies.
Oh.
Hi, Maddie.
Trish was saying we've got some support now.
Ladies here to back you up.
Uh-huh.
Ladies represent. Do you all like going out on these adventures with them at all?
I don't anymore. No.
Andrea, rarely. I think I do a little, but not what you guys would consider fishing.
No, they're
pretty basic.
Long days, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to put in more than a few hours. Maybe one sunset. Mm-hmm. That's about it.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, I think some of our wives are kind of used to some of the same thing, and we do have some other ladies that are addicted to fishing, and they want to catch that next big catfish also.
Good for them.
Yeah, no, that's pretty impressive. We like to see girls out there representing. We want to see them catching big fish too.
Mm-hmm.
Can't
here
be
was
men all the time.
Here was a good question.
No.
Yeah, Paula Smith, good example.
We try not to. Although you guys see me in chat, sometimes if you see Kelly Speaks Out, that's me chatting, trying to push the channel along and talk catfishing a bit with you guys, but I don't usually know what I'm talking about. So I mostly just say, hey, go check this out, or pick on Epic when he's online.
Well, hello, Kelly Speaks Out. It's great to meet you. And
It's really nice to meet you too, Stan.
how about on the Epic side of it?
What's that? Not very often to me. We have two sons, so it's them that like they've been out there more than me with the big fish. So
You've seen him on a few of the videos, so.
yep, they have more to talk about there. I listen.
Let's see here.
I don't exciting as the boys are, so we'll try to do our best here to entertain you guys.
Oh no, that's great. We like to see the other side of things. Muskrat Adventures makes sense now. But yeah, we've got there's one, Sharina's keeping it real. She's out there. She's just
I
recently
see
started
Sharina
her
a lot in
channel.
chat. She represents. Hi, Sharina.
We got Paula Smith, of course, who just put a video out today with an 80-plus pounder that she had caught.
Wow.
Yeah, Paula's a beast. Don't let her fool you.
Yes, and she will talk catfish with any one of us, and the knowledge that she has, just amazing. You look in her room and you'll see, she'll show you the books after book after book, and I'm sure you'll see some of Epic's publications there even, and you know, just
Possibly.
she'll come and read about catfish. So
Wow.
we got one ton. All right, since y'all are in, my granddaughter wanted to say hello real quick. Talking of representing,
Hello.
Hello.
she just caught her
She's a
personal
cutie
best.
pie.
Thank you. She just caught her personal best when? You remember?
New Year's Eve. No, like the day before New Year's Eve.
Right around New Year's Eve. How big was it?
30 pounds.
30 pounds. What do you want to do now?
Very good.
Now she wants a 50-pounder.
50.
Keep fighting for it, girl.
So she saw the comments in there about the females representing, so she wanted to come in and say hello.
Very good.
You have any questions that you'd like to ask?
What is your PV?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's probably just crappie, and it's probably just the size of my hand.
Yeah, and I couldn't even tell you. I don't remember.
There's Thomas Littlepage coming in. Thank you. Oh yeah, Roger Anderson says, "I know what my wife says when I come in stinky from fishing."
Yeah. I noticed the comment before from Muskrat taking a strong woman. I don't think it's so much the woman being strong. It's just a strong sense of smell to be able to not be grossed out.
Is there any advice that you all can put, that y'all have that like we've been married over 30 years, and so she's kind of learned how to deal with my catfishing or my fishing addiction. Catfishing is kind of a newer thing, chasing these monster catfish.
Just fishing.
But, yeah. Any advice you have for any of the wives that are out there on how to deal with
I'm going to shoot that one to you, Andrea.
Yeah, I would just say patience. That's the only thing I have to offer.
Yeah.
Patience.
Timmy, we're not
Patience and
Kelly,
understanding.
we're not talking about that, Kelly. Do we have a rule at the table? No catfish talk.
No.
never stops.
No.
There's no rules.
There's no rule.
If I was to try to enforce that rule, it backfires. So no.
Say goodbye.
There's always fishing, rain. Always fishing and rain anywhere it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really wishing they'd come back now, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Muskrat's got another one. Since the men have their hobbies, what hobbies do y'all have that take up that time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really have one, I guess.
She
I
works.
just, I work and,
I'm a mom.
yeah, we take care of
Trying to
kids.
keep the house sanitary.
Yep.
And-
Time to find hobbies. Since they're big.
Yeah, no, they're getting bigger. Mine's 14. He's in driver's ed. We're getting ready to 15.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's not a hobby. That's the entire job, 24/7.
no, I know it's boring, but
Yeah.
I've been participating in chat, trying to pretend.
Yeah, so if we could put Catfish Heroes link out there and make sure we got Epic's link out there, that would be
They're
awesome.
coming.
Mm-hmm.
What hobbies do you girls have?
Yeah.
None.
I play SimCity quite a bit.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a good hobby. Video games.
Yeah. Reading books isn't much more of a hobby.
Hey, well, we can relate to that. A lot of us can relate to the games and the books. So that's
It is.
I talk fishing and fish more than Thomas does. That's what Sharina just said.
Trina's got it. Trina's got that fish habit.
Oh yeah.
Here he comes.
All right.
We're passing it off, guys.
Leave them.
Thank you.
For having us.
Thank you so much for taking the time
Girls,
and agreeing to do that. Thank you.
So I was able to look at the phone a little bit, and I will answer some of the questions here because someone asked about hooks all over the house. I've got more fishing hooks. I've got hooks on my nightstand. I got them in the bathroom. I got them on the kitchen table. And I redid all my rods because it was so cold. It was
What's
like
this?
-4. I had stuff all over the kitchen table, the dining room table. Cleaned off all her stuff, threw out all like 10 flathead rods, and just proceeded to get them all worked up. Yeah, it's I got a problem.
DMV.
DMV, yep. And
Do what it be what it is.
There's rods leaned up against my front door on the inside right now. Just rods everywhere. Yeah. Stan seems frozen.
No, he's good.
I'm still there. Yeah, I'm trying to walk and chew gum at the same time, and sometimes I'm a little slow for that.
That's rough, bro. That's rough. But hey, Stan, guys, and everybody, I'm gonna let you all get back to your Catfish College here with Epic Catfish. I was glad to come in and talk to you guys tonight. Hey, the Catfish community is awesome, absolutely awesome. All these people, everybody in chat. I mean, we are truly blessed. It's absolutely amazing to be able to be part of this stuff, guys. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Sean. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for convincing Epic to come out here and share what he knows with us. We're all eternally grateful for that. And we like if anytime you want to come back in, just let me know. We'd have you come on one night, and be more than happy to have you come on and talk anytime you want.
Yeah, I truly appreciate it, and it's absolutely awesome, guys. Thanks for the love.
Well, thanks for being here. Buddy.
Yeah, man.
You ready for Sunday?
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm ready to go fishing. This sucker's ready to go fishing.
Monster time.
It is monster time. Guys.
All right, so while I was waiting for Shaw's outro there, to break the world record slowed down. That was by Catfish Regulators. No, because I think I have broke the world record a couple times already. Although I'm willing to sacrifice the fish, I'm not willing to wait till the DNR gets it. They will. They basically tell you that you have to take the fish and wait for them to get there on their own sweet time, and I'm not willing to do that. I think truly huge fish are rare and prized that I've always wanted to protect them. Matter of fact, I left a standing order that if anybody catches world record or a state record, if they're within 400 miles of me, I will bring my tank. If they're dead set on keeping that as a world record. Now, this is back in the day when I had the ability, but there for a period of time, I was willing to tank to them to put that fish in God. Because I felt that all fish should really be released.
Okay, seems like we've got we have a few people out there talking about this.
Yeah.
And I think it goes long in with the barometric pressure and all those other kind of things that we tend to look at. But can you discuss the effect full moon has on a bite?
Yeah, let's talk about the full moon. And matter of fact, Sean is probably he fishes. Sean fishes a situation is so non-natural that he can really dial in with his experience what to do and what they don't. Because really there's not a lot. It's all about the depth, and it's a long series of canal pools. So and since he fishes enough and a lot, he will tell you even that once that moon crests the trees and shines on the water, for flatheads, that is. Now, you can still catch flathead on a full moon when it's shining in the water. If you're in water that is fairly turbid and, meaning it's kind of dirty and fairly. Hey, Stan, you are really breaking up there. Is that
I was going to say we're having a hard time. We're having a hard time hearing you also.
Okay, is it a staticky thing or is it just I need the mic?
Maybe that sounds a little better. It was a little static,
okay.
But that sounds clearer there. Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes if you touch it, it's going to be a little. But I can try to turn that up. Let me go up here. Headphones. Well, anyway, I'll get to it because I think it's kind of.
No, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Is that better? Okay.
Perfect.
So as far as the moon goes, I wouldn't doubt if the effects of the moon don't affect even our fish that don't have anything to do with the tides, because it has to do with toll on liquid such as water. So and a catfish also have that in your pressure gauge, basically called the air. It's the thing that as soon as they go deeper, that air bladder gets crushed, by the pressure, and then as it goes up, it gets expanded. So anytime you've got a force that deals with the pressure of the air compounding into the pressure of water, because every go to another atmosphere as far as weight. Water's heavy, so the deeper a fish is, the more pressure is put on it. So a change in pressure is going to activate the fight or flight. Basically the flight in fish, because when they're up shallow and it all of a sudden is starting to drop, they can feel it, and so they know to go deeper. And that is one thing that they will do very quickly. Now, flatheads are less prone to moving quickly based on water levels or pressure of the air, because they are geared more towards holding their spot, because that's what they want to do. They're big on controlling and dominating realists, because that's what they are designed to do. That's the niche that they fill. So flatheads get trapped in shallow when it gets cut in the main river way more than blues. Well, blues almost never get trapped, and channel cats rarely get trapped, but flatheads are kind of susceptible to that. So we know that the three act differently according to pressure.
Okay.
Can you discuss?
I hope that helps.
Yeah. But that's the only. I mean, I've got a few theories, but that's the only one I can really prove with hard evidence.
Is there anything that that they can do? Because one of the other questions out there was about how they fish. How do you fish a full moon to try to better increase their chances of catching?
Yeah, fish the shade. You know, there's shade during sunlight period. There's also shade during moonlight period. So if you're out there in the middle or right there in the moonlight, if the moon is casting some shade, try to kind of gravitate towards that, you know, and because when I do catch good fish or big fish during the full moon, I'm usually in the shade.
Hello out about Jay's Cash Fishing. Thank you for coming in. So is that why on sometimes, because we were talking about pressure with the moon, and when you have more than one of the negative side effects, is that's why some days people pick one thing, like absolutely. Just say the barometric pressure. The barometric pressure may be good or bad, and you'll still catch fish if it's bad, because the other effects aren't there. But if you have like the full moon with the pressure, with the other, that's why that day it's going to be very tough.
I'm going to give you my top list of when not to fish. And that is high pressure, water cooling, and water dropping. Those are and a full moon. So if you stack all four up, or all four, if you stack high pressure, falling water temperatures, the dropping water, that's almost that is like an equation for the bite you can ever find. I'm not saying people can't catch fish in it, but if I have those or even three of those, I'm going to postpone my trip. Or rapidly rising water. You can even stack that as number 5 or number 6. So if you have rapidly rising water, and I know people like rising water, and that's okay on the rise, but once that water comes and fills and those fish start to move off that main channel and spread out, I don't like that at all. It's never been beneficial for me where and how I fish for the fish that I fish. Now, if you're after like channel cats or you're after eater size fish, it can be some of the best times to fish ever, because you can get into that tree line where it was land. Then all of a sudden they're up in that tree line and running amok up there. You can go and you can do stuff like that. But for trying and catching big trophy fish, it doesn't seem that it's a great thing. And one reason is that there's so much trash coming down the river. So, you got that high water situation that just influx. You got grass, you got sticks, hula skirts on your baits. It's a nightmare. For me, it is. So when I know the river's like that, I'll actually postpone a trip. I'll postpone a trip on a hard fall, postpone a trip on a hard rise. I'll postpone a trip on, if I didn't think about it enough to check about the moon phase, and I'm post-spawn, say probably, August, September, something like that, I'll postpone a trip till it's a new moon if I can. Now, if I just want to go out and catch fish, I'm fine with going. But if I've got people going, right, like Aaron or Sean or somebody that's really, John Weir, but I got a big list of names that are going, could be wanting to go with me, and they don't want. They're kind of catfish ruined like me. They are not all that happy. I mean, they don't mind it, but they didn't travel all that way to come and catch, fish under 50 pounds. They want to see that 50 to 80, 90, 100 possibly. I got friends with humongous PBs. because we all been doing it so long, and we've been doing the same type of thing because we I learned it and taught them, or we all learned it at the same time, and we talked it over these years, and the success rates is pretty huge just on that basic mantra. You get guys that are, and they fish a lot, and they use those certain principles, look out. I mean, I got 10 friends that have caught, their PBs are over 80 in an area that doesn't have a lot of 80s even.
Exactly. I saw Palmetto was out there. Palmetto, I wanted to say what an awesome job. And you can pass that on to to Steve, the Catfish Conference. Kevin, you've been killing it. Steve's been killing it. All the guests on the conference and the vendors, just an absolute fantastic job. Everybody's been glued to the virtual conference all day. Just an amazing job.
PC Smitty says, I hate catching 40-pounders with the big crying laugh. Yes, I am spoiled, P City. Yes. And, at one time, I would have been absolutely, just giggling like a schoolgirl catching 40s. But that's been a long time ago. I had the time, the inclination, knowledge to do it. I mean, I never put anybody else's fish down. I think the greatness of a fish is in the eye of the beholder, where he's at the time, and they fish. People fish for different reasons. I mean, I never look at somebody else's fish and go, oh, that's a dink. I say, oh, that's if they like it, it's awesome. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you can be a guide and look down on small fish, because you'll have people in your boat every trip that their PB's 8 pounds. And they're ecstatic about a 12. And you know what? You cannot. And I can, back when a 12-pounder was huge. I mean, it took me a long time as a kid, as a young kid, even though as passionate as I was about it, to catch a 10-pound fish. I mean, a long time. But once I learned what I was looking for rather quickly, but it is absolutely one of those things. So City, I do not like catching 40-pound fish. I still like it.
Stan 3 and I went out with 2 of his friends a couple months ago, and each one of us went in the other person's boat. So there was 2 boats. I went in one, he went in the other, and both the people we went with that night, they both caught their PB catfish, and it was in the 30-pound range. And the excitement from that fish was just, the pole hit, and it's like, yes, there it is. And everybody had the most amazing time. And I think we ended up catching 20-something or 30 fish that night. And that was the big ones. 2 of them were right in the 30-plus range, and it was just an amazing night.
I'm kind of envious of that. I wish I could catch a 30 and do the donkey dance. I wish I was still there. Because, if Sean and I are high-fiving on 25s, that would be good, because we'd be doing it sometimes every 10 minutes. That would be the greatest thing. But unfortunately, reality says that, that's a good fish. But, man, once you've latched in those fish, that it's like hooking into a manatee or a shark or a bear or whatever we call it. Well, it's just a whole new world.
Well, there's that whole living vicariously through each other. We get to live vicariously with your 100-and-something pound epic catfish till we get up there, and you get to live through our excitements over 30s and 40s. And here's a good question that came in.
I never get tired of somebody being excited about a fish.
Yep.
Never get tired of it. I love it.
Matter
of fact, I watch P City on his live stuff, and he catches a 20-pounder. He's like, "Yeah, it's a 20-pounder," and I'm excited for it. I watch your guys' stuff. I'm excited every time.
Yes,
every time, and that's why I like taking people. I really do like taking people, because I get to see and be a part of that excitement that I might have to that level anymore, and that's why I call it my catfish addiction, because it's like an addiction. It's one of those things where, as you progress into the situation where you're catching more and more and more bigger fish, you of course want a bigger one. I mean, I want to catch 150 this year. My heart's
Well,
kind of set. You know, am I going to be disappointed? I might be. I might not be. It just depends.
You said you were
Does
kind of
noise
looking
scare
at
away fish?
Yes.
What's that?
You were talking about that addiction to catch that next big fish, and you said you were listening a little bit while you were out there. My granddaughter came up and she said about her 30-pounder, and she wants a 50-pounder now. So you know that
Yes.
addiction for that next bigger fish, we all have it.
That's
But
right.
yeah, there's the question. Does noise scare away fish or attract them? Are they curious?
Well, I've seen evidence of some fish being attracted to noise and some not being attracted to noise. It seems that channel cats are very flighty. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that big channel cats won't be attracted to certain noises, because they will be. But let's just say, let's talk about a noise. Let's just talk about something hitting the bottom. Channel cats, when that ting goes off, and believe it or not, travels better in water than it does in the air. I think a lot of people know that. So channel cats, one of these, you hit the bottom of the boat, you can see channel cats. They do the big crazy. Sometimes they'll just take right off. Even if they don't notice the boat, that will actually set them off. Flatheads that you can see, you can darn near poke them with a stick and they won't move. You can make all the noise you want. I can crash my boat up on top of a big log jam, get the baits out, come down, and catch flatheads 5 minutes later. They don't seem to be scared by noise. Blue cats, I've never always hang out deep, so I don't. I mean, possible that maybe it startles them a little bit. I think their propensity for hanging out in deep water has kind of saved them from that. But channel cats, since they hang out shallow, they have a lot of predators. They have a bird. I catch a lot of channel cats with stork pecks, right in their bodies. So where storks have tried to eat them, they come up that shallow.
Peace City Smitty, that's me, Squirrel Girl Giddy.
That's awesome.
Muskrat Adventures. I need a donkey. Great stuff.
Awesome.
Back to what we were talking about. I took a bass guy catfishing, and we wore out some 15-pounders, and they were huge fish to him.
Yes. Yep.
Was there This was setting hooks and crossing eyes. I fished by a bar, and when they have a live band, the louder it is, the better my flathead night is.
Ryan, I used to fish down at Keokuk. Well, I still do, but I'd be on one of my favorite spots, and they had a bar that was open before that last flood. It is since closed, and yeah, they'd have some loud music, and it just sort of made the evening pretty darn enjoyable. But I did notice that it didn't really affect. I mean, when the band wasn't playing, I caught great fish, and when the band was playing, I caught great fish. So I don't know whether I know it didn't hurt. At least I don't think it did. But that's interesting that he says that, because if he's on the Fox, it's fairly shallow water that they're fishing. That's Creel's kind of right there. I see that. My excitement level depends on how long it's been since the last one was caught. And that kind of, or how quickly the last one was, how soon the last one was caught. Because I love it when we have 3 fish going on at once, even if they're 40-pounders. I think that's pretty epic. So, you'll even see in Epic Catfish videos where Sean and I are like, yeah, 3 fish in the boat, triples or doubles or whatever.
Flint Hill catfish, and I've often thought about hanging trot lines off of the area. People on the river. It's a great way to cover a lot of water.
Yeah. And, if you knew Brian, you would expect that comment right out of him. It is awesome. I think he deals with a lot of tubers and a lot of people just kind of pleasuring around on that river. It's a beautiful river.
I heard you brought this up a little bit before. And have you ever tried clunking like they do in Europe. And I've had my son had fished with Stan 3 had fished with not fished. He worked with a guy, an older European guy that he actually made the wooden clunk, clunk. Have you ever tried that here?
You're not going to believe this, but I have 3 clonks. Next time we're on the live, remind me. I'll get them. If my kids were actually send them to go get them, and one is a homemade one, 2 of them are store-bought ones. And I did experiment with it in, I think, the late 80s, and I experimented with on both the Mississippi River and also the Rock River, which is a mid-size, well-known flathead river that has a good population. And I did not notice a difference one way or the other. Because the first thing you have to do, the only way you're going to notice a difference is if you're on fish that are not biting, and then you clonk, and then possibly you get some bites. And because if you move into an area, anchor up, clonk, and then all of a sudden catch 3 flatheads, well, who's to say you didn't catch those? You wouldn't have caught those without clonking. So it's really, you have to experiment on a tough bite. So you'd have to do it and do it a lot, and you really have to record some results. And I wasn't that interested in that technique to figure it out that I was willing to clonk all the time, because fishing was more important to me. So I just kind of gave it up. But that is an interesting question, Thomas Littlepage.
And Whiskers and Stripes, clonking, is that the same as the thumpers? It's similar. It's the same kind of concept, I believe, but the clonking is more of like a slurping bloop, bloop, where the thumper is more of like that thump.
Yep. And if you've watched much on Wells cats, you get the idea, and I've never fished for them, but you get the idea that they are more of a chaser than even blue cats are. And there's something to be said that if you are the only main predator in which the Wells cat is undisputed. That catfish doesn't have any close competitors at all. Like flatheads have close competitors in channel cats and blue cats. The Wells cats has none, which is kind of crazy, because usually predators usually grow bigger because they have to outgrow other predators. So I wonder how long it's been since it's only been the Wells cats, because it's possible that there was 2 or 3 competitors, and all of a sudden the Wells cats won out in the last few thousand years. I mean, that's always kind of me. Why would you get a megafauna creature that doesn't need competition? So obviously, and that's how the law of nature works. If you're going to get big creatures, they either evolve to be big to protect themselves, as well as be able to eat what they want to, and to be able to, Chris has one. No. And same is true with African, and all, they grow big to be able to do certain things, and, all that stuff. So it's that whole science megafauna theory.
And I think some of that, and we've talked a little bit about that. It's tough for the average fisherman, the weekend angler that doesn't get the chance to go out day after day after day, to kind of have the same controls that's needed to do like an experiment. Because you got to have, obviously, for a scientific experiment, you got to have that same control. And it's, as we know, it's Mother Nature, and it's kind of hard to get that control with that limited time on the water, and et cetera, et cetera.
Very much so. And you have to be very committed to it, because it's easy to go fishing. But if you want to figure out the workings of the universe underneath the water, that is one thing. And it's one of those things you do on. So it's not just fishing, it's reading, it's talking to people. It's also running underwater cameras. It is also being involved in tournaments. It's also, fishing small, medium, and big size rivers, and having a big range. I mean, and that's one of the biggest secrets to me, learning what I've learned. And then I learned even more because I just pro cats. So when I decided to start pro cats, I needed to be able to, have absolute research to back up the writings that I was doing. So I started, doing other things as well. I bought that whole underwater camera system, just for that, because I needed to find out whether flatheads were actually sedentary, sitting the winter out, or they were actually eating like in fishermen claimed. And as it turned out, in fishermen was the best.
Let's see. There was another question. Do catfish grow larger? And I think I've heard you talk about this on some of the other ones. Do catfish grow larger based on the size of the water system they are in? Or is it due to the available foods?
That's a no. And I can say that with good confidence, because we know that flatheads that are trapped in, say, like situations like Seanfish's, the canal, it is not big water. It's tiny water. It's the fact that they have plentiful food, and that is part of that equation. You will not get large catfish if the food source is not, except, if it's a low par food source. I do know that wherever you find big blues, you usually find large amounts of big baits. Giant shad, herring, the skipback thing, the hickory shad, the Asian carp, big suckers, things like that. If you don't have a food source, let's just say you have shad, but none of them survive because maybe a winter is pretty terrible, and the average shad is tiny, like a big lake situation. It's a lot tougher for blue cats to get really big than if they were able to use less energy and eat bigger baits. You know that. But the evidence says that with flatheads, they can grow very large in a small environment as long as they have adequate food source, and as long as people aren't basically killing them before they can get big. Because it doesn't matter. Flatheads, they're very slow growers. They'll grow fast up to sexual maturity and then slow way down. And we've seen that in the inner ear bone, which is called an otolith. They dissect. And I've seen a lot of those slides, and I've seen the studies. I mean, there's some flatheads that are just off the charts. 55 pounds and 12 inches when when Henry Ford put out his first Model A.
Now there we go. Does genetics have something to do with if the fish in the right conditions with the right genetics? Because you hear, we're talking about releasing back breeders and the bigger fish, because we want that. You've heard it with the stronger genetic. That they would have a better chance to grow bigger, and that's the genetics that you want in that water. Is that a myth, or is that truth to it, or?
No, I believe it's absolutely true. And we know this because you will have lakes with good food source, adequate depth, good water quality. You'll have blue cats all the same size put into lakes, and you'll get 2% of them or 1% of them, and they will be off the charts big. Same food source, same water, same age, off the charts big. So you usually have 1 to 2% of the outlying that has the genetics. You'll have another 10% that is noticeably bigger than the rest. But when you get to that percent, you're going to find that 25% of them are, about an average mean, and you'll have another 25% that is way small. The other thing that I've noticed, and I have actually had flatheads that were from the same body of water that were tiny at the very same time. So obviously pretty much part of the same brood stock. Brought them home, put them in a tank. One of them was extremely aggressive. The other two weren't. The one out-ate the other two until he was big enough, and then he ate the other two. So there is also that. There is possibly genetics based on aggression. There's possibly genetics based on There's possibly genetics based on, a whole host of things, but we know that genetics plays a part in almost every living creature that there is. And let me explain this one too. You'll also have genetics, rivers that are sectioned off from the Mississippi River by the way dams, like Lowhead dams. They don't really move back and forth from the big river to the like the Fox. Ryan fishes there. There not and was not a lot of 60 and 70 pound fish in there in the last span of 30 years. Now, I believe that they got knocked down by a little bit of overpressure, things like that. But there are some 50s in the Fox. Whereas the Spoon River is very much like the Fox. No one catches a fish over 30 pounds unless it comes straight from the Illinois River that moves up and gets stuck below that first Lowhead Dam. So it is interesting to look at populations and say, is it a fact? We don't necessarily know because nobody's paying for that study. Nobody's saying, hey, what genetic markers is in these big fish that isn't in these little fish? So, I mean, it's just, catfishing fish like me that's have to say, okay, I'm going to extrapolate the fact that we have giant flatheads of the same age. We have blues from the same giant channel catch from the same age. Some are big and some are small. Trish.
Apologize, I've missed this. Does answer her question about his drawing skills. Did he study it, or is he just a natural talent at drawing?
Well, Trish, I've always been able to draw, but I can draw way better than what you see on my films. I'm doodle sketching on my films. I can actually do but it takes me a time. I can paint, natural landscapes, tree, Bob Ryle. I can do fish. I can do realism. I can draw you a picture, a Trans Am, and it looks like it's metal. But it takes me a long time. So, I'm trying to get that, that catfish sketch in this little thing. And yes, I did study a little bit. When I was in college, I did take some art classes, and I took art in high school. And usually, if there was awards to be won, I do it. And I think there is natural ability because my oldest son is an excellent artist as well, and youngest son. So it kind of runs a little bit in the family. Plus, I'm a furniture designer, so I'm like the weirdest person ever. So usually people that love like catfish and statistics and science usually aren't that good at art, but I'm pretty good at art. And I'm musical, but my brother and sister can sing and dance like nobody's ever seen. My sister plays the piano and paid to do it. My brother dance and sing. I'm the world singer. You don't want to sing. It's horrible.
Okay, here we have another question. I'd like to ask Tim about the complication of pike and channel catfish in the same water. And I guess parts of the river and a few lakes here that have
Cameron,
pike, channel, tiger muskie.
Yep. That is one that I've really never studied. So I have to admit that I have no evidence of any complication from muskie and channel cats. The one piece of evidence I do have one, and it's completely anecdotal. I had a 150-gallon aquarium, and I had two small flatheads in there. They were about 8 inches a piece, two of them. They used to hide behind the rocks, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get some tiger muskies. So I went to when you could still buy them at the pet shop, and the little 6-inchers were affordable, but the 14-inchers, like the big, that were like this tall, they were kind of expensive. So I said, okay, I'm going to buy those because I don't think those flatheads can eat them. And they survived in there for about a week. And I kept feeding the flatheads, fine, feed them chubs, feed them minnows, feed them goldfish, whatever. And the tiger muskies were awesome to watch. They were they'd fly around and they'd hit those muskies, blah, blah, blah. So after a week, I woke up, got the chubs out of the other aquarium, went to put them in there, and there's no muskies. I can't see them. I'm thinking, what are they doing? You know, the rocks or what? So I look back there, and there's the 2 flatheads that left them alone for a week and were plenty full, ate both of those tiger muskie, and the face of the tiger muskie was sticking out, you know, the mouth and the tail. They folded them in half, stuffed in their mouth, and both of them at the same time ate both those really aggressive, crazy, huge tiger muskies. I was like, well, okay. So I learned something new, and it cost me like $100.
This just reply back from Trish. Amazing. She's an art teacher, so loved seeing you represent the concepts visually in your video today.
Awesome.
Talking
Trish,
about like
I never met an art teacher. Yes, I've never met an art teacher that didn't like me, because I push boundaries and I do stuff. You know, like when I was in college, we did a whole figure drawing class, and I had gotten some watercolors and like a big thing. And my art teacher's like, because everybody else is doing charcoal and stuff, but she argued I was, you know, I can do charcoal. She's like, he's going to do a study by himself in, you know, watercolor. So I just thought that was pretty cool. And that is one thing about artistic teachers, especially, see people really develop their skills. And it's really kind of quite refreshing compared to math teachers and stuff like that.
Get her a spot on 5 Minute on a live channel and still have to run to town to get stuff. So, here's a question about
Nice.
I'm going to try to answer this myself and then see what you say. Thomas Littlepage, everyone says that flatheads prefer live bait. Wouldn't current cause cut dead bait to move like live bait? And I'm going to say that yes, my experiences I've seen in the James here, that not only flatheads, but even blues, but specifically the flatheads, people say that it has to be live bait. I say it has to be fresh bait if it's going to be cut bait. If it's fresh cut bait, and you've got that in the river, I think that the motion from the river with the freshness of the cut bait makes a difference. Just my opinion.
Well, I do believe in that, because there's no absolutes in fishing. But I will tell you one thing: fresh cut bait, A, has the slime coat still, and B, still has electrical signals. We know that once you kill a bait, they emit electrical signals for almost an hour after death. So a flathead is very in tune to electro perception, and they have the ports. If you look underneath the flathead's chin, they have the most developed electro perception apparatus in any of the catfish. Bigger than blues, bigger than channel cats, bigger. Largemouth bass have them too, tiny things. But a flathead has such a pronounced jaw, and it's of course undercut. It's designed to actually use electroperception as well as sense smell, as style as their lateral line to detect vibration. Now, I honestly think that it is closer to what Thomas Littlepage is saying, but smaller rivers are less likely to have, just say this from experience, because I go to mid-sized rivers, and I've used a lot of cut bait, and I catch a lot less flatheads on cut bait in mid-sized rivers than I do larger rivers. For some reason, it seems that competition itself plays a role in them eating cut. Also, there's that period of time between that cold water and the warming trend that for some reason I have this idea that they're not active enough to physically chase live baits or strike at live baits very hard, because they're lethargic. They don't have the energy. But if they can just mosey over real nice and pick up a piece of cut bait in that early portion of the year, it's more opportunistic in its thing. But I've also done the cut bait thing also in August, but only usually when I'm in areas that has competition. So you throw your live baits out, and you'll get some bites, but throw cut baits and you'll actually be more successful at catching the fish, and numbers of them. I mean, I talked today. That's one particular spot. There's another spot. There's a bunch of spots, but the faster the current with flatheads does not seem to promote the fact that they're eating cut that's moving. It seems that it's actually the activity level of higher when he goes into faster current. Okay, so if he's willing to get up out of his normal stuff, his nice vacation end type perfect wind, I would say, and he's willing to go into that faster, he's going to be pretty darn aggressive. And I get him biting anything almost when they're aggressive. And I also know this because every time I anchor up to this bridge, the head of the spot has way more current, and that's usually the more aggressive fish. It's a quick bite and it's a pound down and go, and you might get 2 or 3 fish doing that, but usually it's only one, and the rest of the fish are kind of sitting back. Okay.
Let's see. I think
Stan's on freeze frame on my end. You're on freeze frame, Stan. You like talking and then.
Can you hear me now? Is everything okay now?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think I don't know if your signal is I don't know if your signal is strong tonight or
am I freezing? Am I freezing up?
You're coming up a little pixelated, and then it'll clear up.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm gonna answer Catfish Cameron's thing. The tiger muskie's making it hard to get a big channel cat population in this lake because renewed fresh spawn and stockers get wiped out by the big tigers. And yeah, small channel cats are gone by almost everything. Flatheads eat them. Largemouth bass eat them. I'm sure tiger muskies would eat them. Other big channel cats eat them. They also eat bullheads. I mean, I've used various live bait. I have caught many different creatures on them. I mean, I've caught big walleye on bullheads. I've caught channel cats on bullheads. I've caught largemouth bass on bullheads. So I don't use too many small channel cats, but they're basically the same type of thing. And you talk to a lot of the DNR biologists that I've talked to, they do say that if you have large predator, you should not be stocking 6-inch channel cats. But some of these places don't want to spend the money on 12, 14, 16-inch channel cats to get a population going.
Kentucky Big Cats and Bourbon. First of all, great job. He was a moderator out there in the chat for the Catfish conference today. Him and Michael Murillo were the 2 main ones that I saw like all day long. So they did an awesome job of keeping
the trolls down.
Yeah, and keeping the chat on topic. And, awesome job. But he said with the cut bait with the flathead, seems to pick up more for flatheads the farther south that he goes than over the years than for some reason. So he's saying that it's farther south it goes, the cut bait seems to pick up more the farther south he goes.
And that very well could be because, I think a lot of us watch Kayak Catfish, and I am completely amazed when he tells the audience that he has a white bass head from his cooler from 3 days ago. He puts it down 2 feet up off the bottom and catches a 45-pound flathead. You could do that a month of Sundays here. You could use an old bass, and you never catch a flathead up here doing that. I mean, it's one of those things where, yes, topography and location are going to have certain tendencies that they don't, because between north and south, it's a pretty big drastic situation. Well, thanks, Sunfish Ass. I think you could probably find some people that don't love me.
Yeah, there's our friend Creole, a lot of yellow cat, as we call them in Louisiana, or flathead or shovelhead, whichever part of the country that get caught on cut bait down there.
Willow cat, yeah, they have many names. And I with Creole, there's a lot of flatheads that get cut on cut bait up here, and you guys will see that this season. It kind of goes in cycles, though. Like I've had certain years where there'd be 2 or 3 months where if you weren't throwing cut bait, you weren't going to be very successful with flatheads. The river has to do a certain thing, and my river has to turn less volatile on the volume of water, and it also has to be, and these are the things that I notice, and it has to get like what I call low and clear. Once it gets low and clear, what I call white bait starting selling, white bass, shad, and gills. The dark baits don't seem to grab their attention. It's almost like they run it's almost like you'll be on a population of flatheads, say below a dam, and you're throwing bluegills. You got 6 bluegills out and 1 piece of moon eye, and it's cut moon eye, and the other bluegills are alive, and you catch 5 flatheads on 1 piece of cut moon eye, no matter where you throw it, as long as you're throwing it in the right zone. So yes, I do fully understand that there are parts of the country that cut bait is probably the preferred bait. For one, it's easier to deal with. If I could target flatheads 100% with cut bait, I'd never even talk about live bait, but I can't, not where I'm at.
I've got a question for you that, let's see, P City Smitty just put something up. Tim, what time of year is day flatty fishing? Oh, what time of year is fishing during the day for flathead better than at night?
Where I'm at, June. You almost can't buy a good bite at night in June. It's a pre-spawn period. They're on daytime. And believe me, I have wrestled with that and wrestled with it for 25 years. Everybody's night fishing. I stay at night. It's terrible. You know, now August, you can still catch them during the day, but that's a night. So, I mean, it's night and day between August.
P City is out here on the East Coast with me. He's Potomac River, Susquehanna River, and I'm James River area.
Yep,
so that's
and daylight wise, you're about the same, but water, because you have the ocean effect, is more of a fast forward situation. So when I talk about June, you could be talking about May 15th to about June 20th. Okay. Because the water temperature is up out there no matter what. I mean, I used to go out to Chris Harris's and I'd be like, Chris, you're farther north than I am, and you guys got great weather. You know, I mean, we got minus 34. I mean, he thinks he's freezing. But I'm like, oh no, that's not bad. It's not bad at all. You got open water.
Yeah, crazy. We used to live up in the mountains in New York, up in upstate New York. And when you come down the mountain, you start coming down the mountain into the valley. There was literally this one field where you could go across the field and you could literally see the line. On one side of the field was green, the other side was white with snow.
Yep.
Once you got to that certain elevation level, that much of a difference. My question for you is, since we're kind of talking about the flathead, you'll hear everybody say you can't catch any flathead in the wintertime. You know, they still got to be there. They still have to eat. Is that correct? I mean, what makes it where people say it's impossible to catch a flathead during the winter months?
So I did a study on that when I was in college, because In Fisherman came out with this thing where they were on at Wing, Minnesota, quite a higher, you know, than I am. I had never caught a flathead in the winter, so I'm thinking this is kind of strange. So I had also some people that knew what Indrain and those guys were doing, because they live, you know, internet, and there was guys in Red Wing that were walleye guys that I was talking, and those walleye guys, fishermen snagging one of them. I said, well, they're claiming that they're catching them. He said, no, they're really not. All they're doing is going from upstream to downstream. He said, you watch all their videos, you stuff there. If they're going from downstream to upstream jigging, they never catch them. If they do, they snag them in the tail. If they're going from upstream to downstream, they snag them in the face. And sometimes they get it in the mouth. But they're using head jigs, doing this stuff, and they're bopping along. As soon as they feel pressure, they just set the hook. And then they were claiming these guys were catching them. No, to my Pro Cats audience, which was about 4,000 members at the time. I kept my outdoor 1,000-gallon tank. I kept 5 flatheads in it from 15 to 45 pounds, and I kept them in there for 3 years. And I kept different groups. I would let them go because it's not really good to keep them all that. I didn't want to skew the results of this study by having the status, because maybe some of them aren't. They're not prone to eating in cold water. Maybe some of them are. So I took those 5 flatheads, kept them for 1 winter, took another, put another 5, put another 5. I don't want to bore you with all the details, but everybody knows that where I live is cold, right? But what I did is I put a heater in there and a thermostat, which kept it at above freezing. So I put in a finite amount of baits that I could count. Okay. So flatheads would eat over 39 degrees, but very seldom. Like I might put 25 baits in there and they might eat 3 in a month if the water temperature is over 39 degrees. If it was under 39 degrees in 3 years, never one live bait got it in 3 years. They never even touched it. So I have a pretty good idea that they're really not eating. I think people are wishful. I think fishing guys are jigging and they just happen to, maybe their jig goes in their mouth when they're breathing in. Yeah, I don't know how that happens, but most of them are snagged on the underside of the jaw. And if you watch those old in-fisherman deals, they kind of unhook them off camera. It was a bad sleight of hand. I think it was a bunch of BS actually. And I was kind of fired up about deciding it was true or not. I found for myself at least.
So that brings up a good question. With their, with the metabolism slowed down with the colder waters and stuff, how long does a flathead go? And even for a lot of us blue fishermen, how often do flatheads or blues, you can go over each of them, how often do they have to eat in that colder water?
Okay, so I also did what's called a relative study. So when you're not only was I into art, I was also into fisheries biology early, until I figured out that later on I was going to have to sit through hours and hours of statistics, which were completely boring. And as soon as I actually got into the field, my job was to basically measure and weigh like 1,000 minnows, like that big. That's enough. I said I can forget fisheries biology, but to go back to that, I did that kind of study, and it's basically a ratio. So what you have to do is you have to get evidence. If I can make this a little bit more exciting, because it's completely boring, you got to get evidence from a lot of different fisheries DNR studies and say, okay, this is how much food a flathead eats. This is how much a channel cat eats, how much a blue eats in an artificial situation, because fish farming is actually a thing at this point. So they knew about channel cats, they knew about blues, and flatheads in it is kind of iffy. But and then based on my experience on that it's very common to catch channel cats in cold water, very common to catch blue cats, but very rare, if at all, people are actually flatheads in that colder water. So I developed this whole equation and theory thing. Sorry if everybody's following me, but basically the ratio is channel cats have the highest metabolism out of the 3. Blue cats have the second highest metabolism out of the 3, and flatheads have a considerably lower metabolism than the other 2, almost by double. They rarely move. They don't have from point A to point B rather slowly. They don't really chase anything, and they're like an angel shark. If you ever watch the Discovery Channel with the angel sharks, they go from A to B. They disguise themselves and they wait for bait fish to get to them, and boom, they chase, move and shake and do all this. And then when you have blue cats in your tank, channel cat, they will really eat as much as they can eat in hot water over like 80 to lose weight.
Tim, You're
we'll
starting to
still
break up
lose
a little
weight.
bit again. You were
Sorry,
starting to
man.
break up a little bit again.
Okay. Do you want to go out and come back in? Because that usually pushes that whole thing. I mean, everybody would have to come out and go in. I mean,
Yeah,
you're like freeze frame.
no, I think they're saying it's on your end. They were saying
Which is completely possible because. Okay, it's probably on my end because I don't have satellite. I have like radio wave stuff, and it's not the greatest.
You're coming back out.
It takes me 11 hours. Okay. It takes me 11 hours to upload a 30-minute YouTube video. Yeah, the upload's not too great.
Okay. It's coming out clearer now. So
good.
Was there any other This is exactly we were talking about this before, Tim, that I noticed that chat doesn't fly when you start talking, which is a huge compliment to you.
Well, and you know, like my friends say, they're like, dude, you're interesting to listen to because no one ever thinks of this stuff. They're like, you are a psycho. Just like Sean, he's like, really? Nobody's ever heard this stuff because nobody ever really goes down this road. I think that's the case.
So what other questions do we have out there? Is any other questions that we want to get answered?
Muskrat. He, you know, I love his attitude. Like with everybody's attitude, but Muskrat's always got a good attitude. So do you want me to just pick a subject and fly?
Go for it,
Stan.
Sure.
I used to I used to do radio shows, and every once in a while the host would get cut off, and I would be like doing a radio show for a half an hour with no co-host. No, you know, so I'm just on the phone telling stories to like the whole, you know, Midwestern states. So that was pretty crazy. So let's talk about that bait size stuff. Let's talk about the donkey baits, because you know when you're using something that's, you know, some people would use for sharks, you know, people think, oh, is this guy crazy or is he dead? I just think it's fun. I think it's fun to eliminate small fish sometimes. I think it's fun to, and I'm only going to throw those donkey baits into areas that are like humongous basin hole type things, because most of the time I don't need to throw big baits. Just like if you watched all my videos, I didn't have giant baits out because I didn't need to, because I wasn't trying to ward off. I was just catching the fish that were there. And Stan, I'm not seeing you very much, but I'll just keep talking.
So, what I was going to do is I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put it on solo layout and go ahead and go.
Okay. So anyway, those giant baits that I showed off, it's kind of one of those. I don't always use them, and I don't always use them in certain areas. There's certain areas I wouldn't use them because you're complicating things for the bite. I'm also not going to use them when I don't see an aggressive bite. If it's a kind of a lackadaisical bite, I'm going to be hesitant to throw any more than like one. Like I'll risk 1 out of 6 rods with a giant bait. Now, if it starts paying off and I start catching monster fish on that, I'm going to take another donkey bait and throw it. And I may end up to where I'm throwing 4 out of 6 big giant donkey baits, and I'm just throwing the small baits on the perimeter, you know, because I want them to find those things. But if I was to throw one of those big giant donkey baits out to the side in the Mississippi River, it's just going to sweep behind the boat anyway. No way to hold them out there. So I got to streamline baits a lot of times in the areas that I go. But I'm mainly going to throw them in deeper, slower holes and what I would classify as a pool. I might have fast water up above it, and then slow water on the bottom. And Flint Hill catfishing, we were talking one evening, and he mentioned something. He's a kayaker, and he just said, I was talking to him about Flathead location. He's like, well, that seems to be like a river under the river. And I said, you know what? I'm going to use that. I'm not going to try to plagiarize it, but I am going to use that because that is a great way to explain the situation. So there's a top part of the river that you see with your eyes. Then there's a bottom part of the river that you don't see, but you have to feel it with your baits, and you have to pick up your rod and feel what kind of current's on that. And here's another thing I'd like to explain. So when you throw, just say this is the boat. Everybody thinks that your line goes straight to your bait. Well, when you have current, it doesn't. It actually bows like this. And because the current is keeping that line pushed like this, and your bait almost, if it's really fast, it almost goes straight like this. If it's a little slower, it goes a little bit straighter, and if it's headwater, it can go straight. So whenever you throw out to the side, you have a bow that is it's I don't know what you'd call it. You wouldn't call it you'd almost call it a double helix. So it's not only bowing up like this, it's also bowing down river like that. So it's actually coming from your rod, going down and over. And if you try it in on a sideways casted rod in current, all it does is dislodge it so it follows behind the boat. So you have to leave an amount of slack in it. And I know that there's not a lot of guys that do it, but there are guys that do it. You just don't usually hear about it. And they're very successful with it. It's one of my more successful patterns when I'm targeting big fish specifically. I can throw those perimeter rods and catch flatheads or blues or even channel cats from the channel cat waters, because they will follow those little ridges. And I know I drew a little diagram of it in one of my videos. So that's something that's kind of interesting. So that's what we have for big. Okay, so huge baits. For flatheads, live baits, I almost never throw them because they're too hard to control. A lot of guys love to show that they're using big quillbacks and all that stuff, and maybe they do, but it has never paid off for me very well because flatheads have a propensity for biting half the bait, moving off, set the hook, don't catch them, you just lose your bait. Or if you throw them close enough to cover, you've got a big donkey bait that's real lively and only does wrap you up in a stick. You may get a bite, you're probably not going to get the fish in. It's too hard to control a flathead bait precisely. Now, if I was the type of fisherman that would go up to a sandbar or a flat or just throw into a barren hole, I don't mind using big baits, but I still can't control them very good. Even even with a weight like this, the problem I have with a weight like this is with a big live bait, it weighs too much to cast effectively. So to drop these below the boat. So I better be fishing really, excuse me, I better be fishing really deep water, fish really deep water for big flatheads, because where I'm at, it's a layer of small flatheads. So, but I can throw a 12 and maybe I'll throw like a 6 or a 12-inch white bass, and I do love those for flatheads because I mean they're white, they're flashy, and they're really, really tough, and they really work. I mean they're constant. But you know, I've caught as many flatheads on bluegills that are tired as I have live baits the way I do it, because the way I do it is a little different than the way a lot of people do it. So I'm going, just like in that video today, I'm going to the fish, I'm going to the cover, I'm trying to throw that bait into their face. I'm not hoping they're going to come out to me. I am systematically targeting them where they live. So that allows me to catch, 50, 60, 70 pound flatheads during the day if I can get lucky enough to put a bait in front of their face. Now, a lot of times those big ones will hang out in a little bit deeper water, but they'll hang out underneath sunken barges. They'll be tucked tight into the cover. They'll be on, ridges and little rolls and basically riffles underneath the water, or maybe big boulders. So it's a lot more difficult for me to target big flatheads with giant baits. So normally, just like the ones I showed you, I'm going to be throwing, 6-inch baits like this. And the faster the current, if I need to get through that current and be accurate with my stuff, which I know sounds like an oxymoron, but it's really not. So I'll survey the area below a dam, and maybe I've got humps that I need to target the front sides. And if I throw too big of a bait, it's almost impossible to line up with a hump. Let's just say this is the hump right here. If you guys can see that. There you go. Okay, so as the current's moving into this hump and going over it like this, sometimes flatheads will be here, but the active position is actually on the front. So how do you target that front when that water is rushing over that? You can't. You'd have to be such an accurate caster that you would actually have to split that hair, because that's not. It's maybe a 5 foot wide space in 20 foot of water, and you have to be another 40 yards ahead of it. So the best way to do it is to anchor off to the side and throw sideways and let that bait bounce until it hooks in front of this. And once it hooks onto the front of this, you're in the flathead zone. And I do that quite a bit. And sometimes it's a pattern for days. And I might catch 20 good flatheads on it in a matter of 6 or 7 days, focused on that very pattern. But then all of a sudden it changes to sedentary, and they're behind it. And then you got to get up on top and drop it down. It's a little bit complex, but it's not that complex. All right, so what's next? Let's just say, hey Stan, what do we got for? What I could probably get right on here too, and I could probably read. I could probably read the question straight off here. Jump into it again. Boy, catfishing, fishing anytime I can keep my boat from swaying. Very good. Flint Hill, it's mostly just conversation. Catfish Heroes, Creel would love to come spend some time down there. Great. Epic. Have you ever here in Texas, Morales, Texas, fishing? I have. I actually fished Lake Tahoe with Cody Mullinex right after he caught the world record blue when it was 110 pounds. I was actually heavily involved in Pro Cats. I was down to the press conference, and I actually helped name that fish. The name of it was Splash. It was kind of interesting because they had a big meeting and nobody could think of the name. And I just asked Cody, I said, well, what did it do? He said, well, it splashed at the surface. I'm like, well, what about Splash? And they said, and everybody voted for it. So that was pretty cool. Now, I only fished Texas I think I fished it 2 days, and we caught some small fish because it had gotten cold and windy. And once it was cold and windy, usually those bigger fish at Texoma anyway pull off the shallows and go a little bit deeper, so they're kind of out of reach. But we were using surf rods and small shad. It was kind of interesting. Let's see. He says donkey bait. What's up?
I was saying Stan 3 was having a question about we haven't really targeted flatheads a lot, and that's something we're going to be doing a lot more this year. Now, when you're going up into the current, even for blues, when you're going up into the current, we're talking maybe in less, I say shallower water, say less than 20 feet, and you've got a lot of rocks and a lot of snags, and you're trying to get into that spot where there's cover. And do you find it best to get as close to that as possible to try to prevent a lot of the snagging and et cetera? Or what's the best way to kind of target, if you're moving your boat up there, what's kind of the best way to? Go ahead.
Okay. Usually I position straight of it is usually what I do. And really boat positioning is pretty key to this whole flathead thing. And I didn't talk about this today because boat position is probably the most important in the equation. First, you got to know what you're looking for. Then you got to be able to, decipher and see what listen to the fish and get on fish and all that stuff. But if you can't position your boat right, and I've actually been in flatheads positions where, you know, and I've been anchoring boats for years, where I have to anchor 3 times because I'm just not happy with it. It's not because I'm a control freak, which I kind of am, but it's mostly the situation where I'm not able to target the fish effectively from my, you know, I think it's going to be one way and then it ends up pushing me too far out or too far in, or I get caught in the eddy when I know I need to be tucked in tight and I just anchor just a little bit because the current, you know, the current's kind of slicing sideways, and especially at night, it's really difficult to anchor completely correctly at night. So I do a lot of my stuff during the day, and you know, you could ask Catfish Heroes how picky I am about an anchor. So yes, you got to identify the cover. You got to identify the correct current. Then you got to identify the cover. Then you got to identify our flatheads there, and then you have to figure out that happy medium. Sometimes I have to anchor out in fast current stand and throw into the slower current because the slower current is too goofy. You know, anybody that watches Catfish Dave, and I just mentioned this because I thought it was interesting because Catfish Dave was a bank angler for so long. Then he got a boat. And then he was really frustrated, kind of cracked me up because he was anchoring his boat in areas he thought he should anchor it in, but he wasn't in enough straight line current. So it's turning him around and cussing about this and cussing about that. Well, you know, all of us fishermen have been in those shoes, including me. I mean, learning how to anchor is a big thing.
Okay, so you're saying basically, especially we're talking about maybe not quite the donkey weights, but the big heavier weights when you're trying to fish in the current. So you're saying straight line, trying to get up ahead of it a little bit and keep it in straight line is kind of the best way, even with maybe even going straight down suspended baits straight down from the boat even.
Yeah, sometimes it's the only way to do it. You know, I enjoy being farther away from flatheads that I'm targeting because I like to fight. I like to be able to cast. I like to fight. But, you know, if you strictly just wanted to put fish in the boat to get yourself going, yeah, you want to be fairly close. If you're too much on top of them and there's too much current, you'll need like for heavy weights just to position accurately. So if there is too much current, but yet the bottom of the river is a little enough to where there's flatheads located there, you got to be up farther from them. And there's an equation, but I'm not even going to attempt to relay it because it's more you know, it's more like super math than anything. It's got like 7 figures, and I don't even know if I really absolutely remember it. I knew it at one time, but it's like something cosine plus whatever stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's more of an art than a science. Anchoring is, you know, you can't really extrapolate. You know, if you're a person that thinks in mathematical terms, but I really don't. So I've just gotten used to the speed of the current versus plus whatever boat I've got, plus whatever wind I've got, I got to go, okay, this is how far I need from it. It's just one of those things that you got to, time on the water will help you figure it out.
Roger had came up, Muskrat Adventures. He actually had recently put out about this school will help you with this school. And it was talking about the Pythagorean theorem to figure out exactly how much line you need to drop back. You know.
Oh, yes, yes.
You're so far away from your object that you want to fish at. Let's say there's you mark the fish like 30 foot behind you and you're 20 foot deep. So you've got using the Pythagorean theorem to find out the exact amount of line to get it right down in front of that object you want to fish.
Yes, and with my equation, when I did it a long time ago, I did not think of the Pythagorean theorem. I thought of the velocity of the current plus the tension on the bait, because I used a standard tension on the bait and a standard ounce plus the 20 whatever, and you can measure that by foot. If you're less than 20 foot, you only have 2 atmospheres, then you got to do all that stuff. But really, when it comes down to it, that's just for me, that was just a human thinking thing that, you know, you do in the winter because it's interesting. But when it comes to fishing season, I throw all that out and I just go, you know, fishing, and I say, okay. Now I will say one thing: as far as it goes, if where I caught that 130, the super, the epic super monster, or whatever the heck I called it, you are literally 200. You're 200 feet from your anchor, and then you're another 65 yards from the fish. The water's that fast, because if you try to anchor too short to those fish and you don't anchor correctly, you're going to drag that anchor right through it. And I've never done well after I've drug anchor through an area I marked big fish at. So, and plus I have to have at least 100 to even anchor effectively, and sometimes 150 depending on the speed of that water. And then, you'll see me throwing like 12 ounces of weight, but I'll be throwing it way back there. If back in the day when I used to only have like 6 and 8 ounces, I used to have to be even farther. I mean, just cast as far as you can and then let line out until it actually bottom. And then once you locked in, even lift up off the bottom, you'd have to hop it back to them. So yeah, it's not an easy thing, and that's probably why I've seen a single boat fish that spot ever, because it's really pretty difficult, actually.
And
difficult,
that
scary,
brings up
and if you get a really big fish,
Hey, well, all of us have caught like that 10-pounder in big current even, and it feels like a 20 or a 30. So imagine catching that epic fish in the current, and it's got to feel just unbelievable. But we were talking about the proper boat and to get it in the right.
It is like a war.
Oh, I can imagine. But we were talking about getting the boat and to get it to the proper strike zone. How big? I know there's variables and it's going to change, but on your average day, how close do you got to get your bait to say? I know it's going to be different for blues, flatheads, and channels also. Like, what is that strike zone? What is that? That magic number that we want to try to get our baits within a certain amount of feet or.
This is something that I kind of, I don't have the correct answer for everyone, but I have the correct answer for me. And the correct answer for me is I try to extrapolate exactly where a fish is, and I try to be upstream by about 3-4 feet. That is my goal every time. So I'm going to survey the situation, and I don't know if I can stand up. You still, I'm going to survey the situation. I'm going to have moved across it. I've anchored, but I've paid attention to where everything is, and I'm going to just because I've got enough experience, I'm going to hook these big giant things. I'm going to hook it just upstream of it, just far enough to where I know if I'm in 30 foot of water, how long it's going to take, and I try to feed it back to it, and I try to settle it. Every single time, even in open water, I've been doing it, for a long time. I used to fish the Illinois River, which is very subtle. You almost see nothing on the surface. So wherever you mark fish, that's where that edge of that drop is, and you really see it on the surface. It's not really a current theme. It's just almost more like a lake. So remembering where they're located, they're not moving, is imperative. So I just kind of act like that with every blues, flatheads, channel cats. So I try to actually physically remember where they're at and to basically angle to where the fish are. And I know if I'm wrong. I know if it doesn't feel right, because every time it doesn't feel right, I don't catch the kind of fish I feel like I should catch. But I get that great feeling. I get the 3-hand clap feeling when I know I'm on it, and I know I've put my baits right in front of those fish. And usually I can say it, and I'll say, hey, we're not on these we're not on the fish correctly. I need to react. Or, I just can't get my baits to where I want them to go. And believe me, I don't want to re-anchor in that. That's a lot of work. It is a ton of work. I feel, even if I don't have to get the anchor myself, even if my kid's got to get the anchor or Sean's got to get the anchor, whatever, it's not fun, but I'll do it if necessary, because it's more important. I don't look at it like, well, I don't want to do the work to the big fish. I've already done most of the work. I've already, paid the money to get there. I've already paid the hotel. I've already put gas in the boat. I've already bought the equipment. I've already done all that. So why not anchor? Why not re-anchor? I mean, I've re-anchored 3 or 4 times on one spot just to get it right.
Now, do you think that is one of the reasons why the drifting and bumping and where you're moving your baits constantly, do you think that that's one of the reasons why that's so popular and why that's been so effective? Because you're actually able to put it in front of more active fish?
Okay, I might make some people not happy about this answer, but I'm going to answer you. And drifting are not, in my case, not superior to anchor. Okay. Because, and a lot of people, I talk to people, and I might know 5 people on my river section. And there's 4 other guys or 5 other guys. They're all bumping. Guess who catches the biggest fish? I do. They don't want to do that effort, and that's fine. I mean, and I don't look down on them for it at all. I mean, drifting is actually, I've done a lot of it. It's very easy compared to anchoring. I mean, it's kind of darn enjoyable. But I know that I'm not going to be able to put a bait in front of a big fish long enough to activate him. Big fish can be more sedentary. They have time on their side. They're kind of bullies, and they don't necessarily do that reactionary strike very much. A lot of them seem to be very careful. You know, in 2012 was my top 10 anchor, and there's a buddy of mine that actually there's a message board that is about that stretch of river, and he saw the pictures. He's like, Tim, you only went down there one time in 2012? I'm like, yeah. He goes, nobody's caught that amount of big fish all year. Not one boat, because they all post their pictures. He goes, nobody's caught that amount, and you did it on one anchor on one weekend. I'm like, well, yeah. And so then I went and caught another 90. I caught another 85. I caught another 70, 60, a bunch of 40s, a couple of 50s. And it wasn't the same spot. It was different. And he's like, man, I said, because these fish are not, if you're drifting and you're dragging on this fast current, I mean, you only have a split second like this. You'll catch fish. You're going to catch a lot of those 20s to 40s. Those active are a lot suspended, but those big fish don't always. When the big fish suspend, they seem to be kind of sleepy. if you get what I mean, just kind of hanging out. Mo Barrett, yes, I have. I have fished Burlington, Iowa, which is the pool right above Keokuk, and there is no good blue population above Keokuk because of the way that dam is. It falls 40 feet from the top, and blue cats just don't lock through very well. There's big channel cats and flatheads up there. Matter of fact, I anchored in, it was about the time of the Big Cat Classic, maybe, and I went up there and I fished with Luke Steen. Luke and Mark were partners, and Luke wanted to do a little bit of pre-fishing, and we were friends at the time. And so I threw the anchor up into the dam, and we started throwing shad heads up into this dam, and we proceeded to catch 10 to 15, 20-pound channel cats hand over fist. It was a great pattern. It was a great whatever. We fished, let's see if I can remember right. There's a chute on the left-hand side. I've only been to that pool like 2 times in my life. There's a chute inside that has some wood in it. It's there. And then there's some sort of, it's not a power plant. It seems like it's maybe a barge terminal. Caught some flatheads and some channel cats there. So yeah, that's my entire experience with, Burlington.
We had a
Can
question.
You still hear me good, Sam?
Yeah, I hear you great. Yep. Still hearing it good. There was a question about the anchor. What's your favorite anchor to use?
Okay, so I will. I have a hurricane anchor. I've had many. I've had Richter anchors. I've had regular sand anchors. I've had Judy's cat tracker anchors. Just a list as long as your leg. I actually had my favorite anchor before this hurricane anchor was actually just a homemade conduit tube about this long, filled with lead and ready rod in basically a cross pattern that you bend up. It's great. It falls quickly in current and all that stuff. But if you get it stuck, you're stuck.
You can usually bend it, but if you get it stuck in a tree, there's no way to get it pulled out in reverse. So the hurricane anchor is very similar to the anchor we say on the what style of anchor was that? What was the company's name again?
Oh my goodness. I know the one you're talking about where you break in and it'll break off so you can pull it out.
Exactly. So yeah, that's my anchor. And if anybody's really concerned about it, all they got to do is go back through my videos. I leave the anchor on the front deck and you can see it all the time. Free boy catfishing is up next. What do you stand?
How long do you wait for the fish to hit before you start walking the bait back to the fish to trigger the bite?
Okay, so, and that's what I was talking about earlier. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wait quite a while, because one thing I got to know is I got to know if they're moving or if they're stationary. If they're stationary, that means that I am going to get bites soon after a cast, like within the first 5-10 minutes, and then after that. But if I start moving my stuff and I'll experimentally move. So if I got 6 baits out and I'm covered in a decent area and I get one fish, and I get another fish within that first 5-10 minutes, and then all of a sudden the bite slows, I'm going to and maybe I even casted it out, the rod's back out, and maybe I get another bite on the one I just casted out. I know that they're not really moving because I've got baits that are basically in the same general area that aren't getting touched. So I'll start moving each one. I'll start pulling it a foot or two. I'll start cranking the reels a little bit, starting to move it. I'll start recasting, repositioning. And if that pays off, then I know they're stationary. They're sitting there waiting for food to come to them. They're not willing to move. So then that'll change my whole strategy basically in at least that spot, and I'll keep trying it. And sometimes it's the only way to go. Sometimes you could throw out 6 rods, and if right in front of the fish, you won't get a bite. You might get 1 or 2 bites in that spot. You're not going to get 10 bites. Yeah, and it also depends on how many fish I've marked in the area too. Flatheads are difficult to mark, where channel cats and blues are not usually difficult to mark. Sometimes blues are difficult to mark. Sometimes it looks like the darn surface of the moon. Where I know it's a heavy blue cat population, but they're all like laying on the bottom.
Let's see. I was trying to see if there's any other ones out there. Not seeing anybody.
Okay, here's one from Thomas Littlepage again. Stan, here's one from Thomas Little from a little while ago. If skipjack or shad aren't natural bait in a river system, what would you recommend for flathead? Okay. One thing that I know is there's a lot of emphasis put on natural bait. I have some evidence to kind of contradict that a little bit, because there are baits that I've used in my past with great success, and there's not that the baits that I use don't exist in the river, and there are no skipjack in the Illinois River. I mean, not the Illinois, the Spoon River, especially up where I'm at. But if I have leftover skipjack, it's one of the best channel cat baits you ever saw. There's no shad here either. It's strictly a sucker and minnow based and crayfish bait. But yet I bring shad, moon eye, skipjack, any of that stuff, and it works fantastic up here. Whereas, and it'll usually outproduce the chubs and minnows that are up here for some reason. I don't know. Now, I also used to use alewives, and if anybody's familiar with the Great Lakes, they have alewives, which are basically a kind of a magic, herring. So when I was a charter mate up there, every once in a while they'd have a herring die off, a wife die off, and I would have the captain. I'd take the big long net and I'd scoop these things up, put them in my cooler, and take them home. And I would fish ponds with them, and I would fish rivers with them. And there's not an alewife in a regular natural river in the whole United States. I mean, so like hickory shad, if it has that inherent great catfish bait attributes, it's going to work pretty much anywhere. I've caught channel cats on everything from my bologna sandwich all the way up to squid or tilapia or whatever. Now, I do agree, however, that if you can use natural baits, especially if they are ones that have the attributes that make great catfish baits, such as the herring family, such as the chub family, such as the sucker family, such as all that stuff. I think it's better than certain other fish. I think it can be better than cutting up a largemouth bass or bluegill or things like that. I mean, a silvery, slimy, bloody, oily bait can do really well in places that they've never seen a moon eye. I mean, you go to a farm pine and just knock the living pants right channel cats with moon eye. Done.
I was gonna ask that. Brought up a question. I was gonna ask that, like things like cut eel. Eels are very oily and they got a lot of slime coat on it. Do you think that the reason that some of those baits work better than others, and then even some of the ones that we'll talk about the unconventional, the chickens and the bacons and the pork and the whatnot that has that. Do you think that the oil and the scent trail that comes from that, do you think that has something to do with why it works well? Or
I think it has everything to do with it. I think it has everything to do with it because if you have as long as you have a bait that's somewhat fleshy and not like super hard. I wouldn't use a chicken bone for a bait because they're going to taste it, but they're not really going to like it. Unless they're really active, they might bone if you put one on a hook. I don't know if they could smell it, but let's just say all those baits that you talked about, they all have the basic thing that classify them as food. Mm-hmm. Channel cats especially will taste things that aren't even food. I mean, they'll get on soap, they'll get caught on other things. People catch them on some of the dumbest things you ever seen, jelly beans, whatever. There's never been a jelly bean that ever swam in, but let's just say that, whether it's chicken, whether it's hot dogs, whether it's pork steaks, whether it's shrimp, whether it's, whatever. Shoot, I got a thing of shrimp here, and I feed, I don't think an arowana has ever seen a shrimp in nature, but man, he sure loves these things. They will take advantage of what they can take advantage of. So, I've got the little shell on shrimp, and there's some places where bite on shell on shrimp, and there's some places where they just knock the tar. I think it depends on what's going on at the time, honestly, because I think channel cats especially can key in on fish, or they can key in on invertebrates, or they can key in on fish. And I think when they happen to be in on the crayfish, I think that's when this stuff really. But I'm not positive on all that stuff. As far as I think a person's got to trust their own judgment where they fish, because I've heard all kinds of weird stuff. I fished the Patonica River one time, which is a tributary of the Kishwaukee, which is a tributary of the Rock, which is a tributary of the, so that's how far removed it is. It has great channel cat. It's got cover everywhere. Laydowns, it's actually a big river, but it's a fairly deep and slow river. I brought shad there one time, couldn't get a bite. Could not get a bite on shad. Could not get a bite. But as soon as I started using grass frogs and leopard frogs, I started tearing them up. They were keying on those leopard frogs. And I just noticed that there was a lot of leopard frogs along the bank. Even though I had a boat. I got shad, I got a boat. I was a guide at the time. I was actually there for work. And I brought a buddy of mine. I'm like, man, this river looks awesome. Let's go. And we couldn't get a bite on shad. But get them frogs, and man, they were tearing those. There are activities for fish to start keying on a certain thing that's plentiful. And when you get them on certain things that are plentiful, I think they excel, and other things don't excel. So, a guy's got to keep your open mind about baits, grocery store baits, chickens, things that, chicken. The only thing I haven't really done is caught really enormous fish on the weird baits. And it's possible because I don't have that much confidence in those weird baits to throw them in those epic spots.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Well, once once fish get up to a certain size, you're really your epic catfish or your donkeys or your biggest fish.
Yep.
Once they get past a certain size, they're pretty much predominantly a fish-based diet. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, and you could extrapolate that as a fish grows older and bigger, that more of a creature of habit. And I talk about fish don't really learn very well. They don't learn very well in short period, but they do have a proclivity for learning things as they grow older and whatever pays off for them. I mean, if you're 100-pound fish, are you really going to peck at the rocks for crayfish all day? Only unless you have to. But if you can eat an Asian carp that's like this big and slurp them right off the surface, yeah, I think that's more of a winning program. Now, you could probably catch a 100-pound blue on a crayfish if you put it in front of his face. I believe that. You might be able to do it on chicken. One of these guys dragging chicken's bound to catch an 80 or 100 one of these days.
Yeah.
They catch flatheads on freaking, on crankbaits every once in a while that are 80 pounds too, with a Snoopy pole, like we talked the other night.
Yeah.
The green, the gummy worms, that type of situation. But the only thing I can say is play the odds and don't be afraid to experiment. I mean, nothing's too dumb. I mean, I don't really, if somebody says, man, I do great on jelly beans, I'm like, dude, that's awesome. It's not like I'm going to go get jelly beans and throw them. But if they're telling me, hey, because I mean, I've got rivers, channel cat rivers, that shrimp don't attract fish very well. If you get it right in front of them, they'll eat it. But I remember I was at a show one time, and it was for Midwest Outdoors, a popular television show, and there was a guy by the name of Catfish Bill on the show with me, and we were fishing the Scary River basically, and he insisted on using shrimp. And I'm like, Bill, all you're getting is tags, and they just spit it and they leave it. And he was insistent, well, I'm going to catch these fish on the shrimp. I finally threw all of his shrimp overboard and handed him a shad. I said, we're going to use shad. This is a film. We got to make this thing work. And sure enough, the very next fish that bit his line, he actually caught it. So, I mean, he was so adamant because he does so well on the Fox River on shad. He thought it should work on the Vermilion, and he basically, before that, he blew some really big fish that would have made the film even better. So I just couldn't, he's like, did you just throw my, I'm like, yeah, I did. I threw that stinking shrimp right in the water. I said, here, use some bait here. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing, that something will work once somewhere, and then 5 trips later, you're still on that same. Well, I caught it here 5 trips ago on this, but I've skunked the past. Well, you gotta, there's something about being determined, but after a while, you gotta. I always say, let the catfish tell you what they want. I want to have when I first start and we go out, I try to have a variety of baits, and you notice that shad starts getting 2 or 3 fish, and you've caught nothing on anything else. Well, it doesn't take long to figure out I'm throwing shad. If it's eel's a pretty good bait we use here, and if eel's catching it, boom, you switch to eel.
Stan, I'll tell you, I've been wanting to tell you this, and I just keep forgetting. If I could get eel, I'd use eel everywhere. That bait. I'm not saying I'd use all eel, but if I'd use eel on the Mississippi, I'd use it on the rock, I'd use it on the skunk, I'd use it on the wapsie, I'd use it on the cedar, I'd use it everywhere, especially if there's big blue cats around. I would eat channel cats. I'd use smaller pieces, but I was impressed with eel out on the James River. I was impressed by its firmness. I was impressed by its toughness and its ability to attract blues.
Yeah.
I definitely use it over shad. And really, shad does really, really well on the James. It does not do really, really well where I'm at on the Mississippi, even though we also have giant shad. It just doesn't. I mean, I can have 2 shad and 4 moon eye out, and the shad are going to get pecked and spit, and the moon eye are going to get inhaled, and the big takedowns coming. I mean, and the other thing too, I want to reiterate the fact that
if you were to go out in my garage right now, I'm almost like a bait shop. I've got a tank that's got I've got a freezer tank with a thermostat on it to keep suckers alive. I've got another tank, 100 round the clock. I can put big suckers in there in the early part. I've got a freezer that I can, like all those baits I was showing today. I got those out a little early because I don't want to be without bait. And like those big donkey baits you guys saw that were like this, those were still it was because I don't have a heater on it. It was frozen 3 inches just all the way around, just in this little tiny bubble of liquid water. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty obsessive about bait. I will go get those suckers before I go to the Mississippi, unless I'm going to get there like that late night, and I know I can go get moon eye first. Because if I have 4 hours of daylight and I can't get moon eye, I need something that I can catch these fish on before I get moon eye. And moon eye they'll key on moon eye, and sometimes the suckers won't do very good. It depends on their activity level. If the activity level is high, I do really well on those big suckers, really well, like the Epic Super Monster and Catfish Brothers and whatever. But once I got to year October, November, then those didn't do as well. So then Sean and I are catching them on moon eye more. We're catching them on, believe it or not, white bass, and we actually did a fair amount better on the quillback because it was more silvery in that clear water than we did on the suckers. But sometimes moon eye are almost impossible to get. So guys gotta have. You guys went out on your live and I was watching you, and you guys had an eel, but then you were looking for shad and it was really hard for you. I really felt bad for you because I'm like, man, if they just had some shad from yesterday or whatever, they could at least have some time, some things. And I will look for bait to a certain point, but I know that I have baits in the water time. Because I have baits in the water time, I'm not learning. All I'm doing is chasing bait. So I've really learned how to basically cliff note that thing and where baits are and where I can target them at certain times a year. That's something you guys are going to learn too. Where especially once you guys get a gill net. I mean, gosh, do I wish a gill net was legal in my state? Nope.
And I want to bring something up. You brought up a point the other night. I think it was on it might have been when you were on Lynn's talking. But anyways, about when you're catching fish, the counter's clicking in the back of your head. Well, I think a little differently. When I'm not catching fish, is when the clicker is going in the back of my head.
Yep.
And that day,
absolutely,
we had bait with us that we should have. We couldn't find the shad. We're in the window for the bite. We should have gave up on trying to find it. Go with the eel that we had because we did have bait. We should have cut it off there a little sooner.
Hindsight's always 20/20, Stan.
But that's in there now for the next time.
Yep.
That's when I say I think that the biggest learning experience is on when you're not catching. That's just.
And Stan, I don't even fish with you. I just watch your progression, and you have come a long way since I even first started watching you. Before we even talked. You went from a fisherman who was fishing to a fisherman who's starting to understand it, a fisherman who's starting to go after it, a fisherman who's starting to open his mind and say, okay, we got this situation. You're learning about the times of year on catfish because, I mean, you've explained it to me before. You were basically a bass pickerel guy because you were up in New York. Now you got this whole new world of catfish. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I predict you guys are going to catch some pretty big fish this year. I really do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We've been and Stan 3 is he's the driver in that. He's out there. I'm getting a lot of the information here, and I get out there when I can, and I will do it. But like we said, 5 days. He's been out 5 days this week, and there's only 5 days so far this week. So that's
that's getting after it.
Sean would call
And I know
that
you
being
s-
a catfish savage.
Yeah. I know you were saying you were looking at about 2 hours tonight. You were at the conference earlier today. I don't
Yep.
want to keep you too long.
And I'm getting ready to get off here, but this is interesting because I'm just looking at fishing cooking with Mike Chavez. He said I've had eel side by side with shad. That always wins. Now, see that thing I was explaining earlier that you always have to listen to people that are there. I have a short window of time that eel did really well over shad when I was out at the James. But, Mike Chavez has been fishing the James for who knows how long. So I got to take his account. And I'm glad I saw that because, that makes me say I saw a brief window of time where eel was excelling and I could be believing it correctly, really. I mean, I've thought eel was so good because we did so good on eel. But if he's telling me that, I have to take that in consideration. I do.
Yep.
And if one person tells me that, I got to go, yep, I'm pretty convinced.
Well, Mike Chavez to me is like, he's like the OG of fishing here, fishing the James because he was the
absolutely.
first. He was the first when I wanted to start fishing the James River. He was the first person that I saw, the first video that I saw about big catfish.
Oh, nice.
In the James River. And the thing is, he fishes the lower James a lot more than what we have. We've had pretty good success with with eel a little bit further up, closer to Richmond area, maybe down towards even going down towards Dutch Gap. We've had good success with eel. So maybe something a little further down that it's just not as productive as maybe some of the other spots that we have fished.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and don't get me wrong, we caught plenty of big fish on shad, but when we had eel, it performed really well. So I guess, and I'm saying I would take eel up here and I would fish with it everywhere. But if it's wrong, if Moon Eye outproduced it or if Suckers outproduced it or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, I was wrong about that. Because that's the last thing I want to do is get a preconceived notion to have my curve not go up but go down or stay the same. I want it to always go up. I don't know what the limit is there, but I would like to think that there's maybe a 200-pound blue with my name on it somewhere.
Amen. Well, I hope you find it, my friend.
I'm going to keep trying. That's for sure.
Creole's been rigging his rods for tomorrow.
Nice.
Nothing.
I wanted to share this little secret with you guys too, real quick before we go. But this is just a $1 or whatever, $2 stupid pool noodle, but it works really well for. I've got one mounted on my boat, so I tie almost all of my stuff. My 7/0, my 5/0, my 4/0, and I just stick them right in because it's like right underneath the gunnel of my boat. And so I don't want to use my bait downtime tying rigs usually. I mean, I've done it. Of course, we all have to do it. But I try to, if I'm going on a big epic trip, I try to tie up, as many of those as I can. There's a lot of things that I'll do to streamline my fishing so that I'm staying in the zone.
And that's also another good tip for people that have smaller boats or you're bank fishing or you're in a kayak and you want to have that's a good space saver. You can have all your rigs set up on that one thing. You don't have to have a whole box or this or that. You can have your sinkers. You got your rigs already set up. You're good to go. It's Stand 3 uses that exact same method that you have right there, and every week he's tying up new ones on the pool noodle.
Sweet.
Life came in. He was great at the conference today.
Yeah, he was. I watched everybody at the conference that I could, and I just thought it was all fantastic. I mean,
and if you didn't get hungry watching Mike Chavez cooking catfish today, then you just don't eat.
Oh, you bet. I hate to admit, but one time we fished with Jeff Williams, which is the owner of Team Catfish. We fished with him on, oh boy, I can't remember the lake. The lake he was on, it wasn't the one in Oklahoma. It was the other one in Missouri. Well, anyway, we ended up catching some small blues, and he cooked those things up. Best catfish I had. Not really big on, eating and killing catfish, my own personal, but boy, they were delicious. And every time I see a small blue now, I want to eat it. But I don't, because the small blue that I let go might be 100-pound fish someday that somebody else catches. I'm just kind of a geek, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked about this. That's one other thing that I want to bring up real quick. Is what every serious catfisherman, or even your casual ones, should learn about proper handling of fish. Limit the time you have them out of the water. If you're starting to fish deeper waters, which is what we're starting to do, fishing deeper waters, I got to learn a little bit more about burping fich and what they look like when they come up.
Or just simply give them enough time to expel that. Because do you want to know what scientifically happens? A lot of people think
please.
Bladder is really not. So their air bladder actually does expand, because all the air that's in the air bladder. And that's the air bladder functions like a submarine, so it allows them to go up and down, and it kind of balances them. So when they're down deep, that air bladder, which on a blue is really about like this, if you take it out of them. I mean, I've seen autopsies and all that stuff. So it gets small like this down in that deep water. When it comes up, it actually blows up like a balloon like this, and then it starts. It's got little valves in there, little ducts. And it starts releasing it into its stomach so it can get rid of it. But if it happens too fast, from super deep water to shallow water, all those build up, and then all of a sudden they can't maintain upright. And so if you leave blue cats, flatheads, channel cats in that upside down position for long enough, they'll actually give up. They go into some sort of weird catatonic state. They just don't do very well. And especially when the current, they get disoriented. And I've been able to physically take catfish that are going to give up, that are floating on their sides, and have them in my tanks. And instead of letting them go, I decided to see if I could correct that. And I would leave one once in a while upside down, see if it would turn over. They almost never did. But if I took like some wire and got them to stay upright and keep them oxygenated, somehow they ended up making it through that a bunch of times. It's kind of a quirky, weird thing. I don't know. It's but handling fish, protect their slime coat. Don't grab into their gills. I don't mind the gill plate if people are supporting it and they're skilled at that. Some people hate that. But, as long as you're not touching the inside red gills, as long as that gill plate, and you're not supporting that whole fish with it. I used to teach my kids with channel cats to actually reach into and never have your fingers leave that gill plate, go right in there. And then there's that jawbone right there. They can just hold the jawbone, hold the top of the thing, and kind of immobilize them. I mean, I got 8 and 9 years old. I don't want them to put their hands in the fish and then hate fishing forever. So I just taught them how to do that. And that was pretty cool. But I think I won't do holds like that on YouTube because it's too hard to explain. It's too easy. People might think you're getting them in the gills, but you're not. So
what is the
coat, gills? What's up?
I was going to say, what is the best way to weigh a big fish? Because we always want to get that weight on there.
A sling or a net or a sling is fine. I mean, they've been in the net before. Just, be quick about it. I don't really weigh big fish because I don't really need to. But I could see, I used to. So I've already been through that. I'm pretty good at guessing them, within a pound or so. Sometimes my eyes get a little bit bigger than my, whatever. But I'm pretty good. And I'm pretty happy with saying, okay, that's a 30-pound class fish, or, it's maybe a high 40s, or maybe it's a low 50s, or maybe it's a high 120s or whatever.
Yeah. So that's, for a lot of us, that first, we want to get that first 60 or that first 70. So really seeing the size, it's, when you first hold that first 50. You don't realize
Yeah.
the size of it until you actually have it there.
Yes. And see, I'm lucky in the way that I've been able to contact many fish above 80 pounds, 100-pound class, and then above the 100-pound class. So I've already been through that situation where we weighed them, we measured them, we did all that stuff. And so, it's easier for me. I feel pretty comfortable because if somebody wants to argue with me that my fish, my 62-inch long, 42-inch with a giant head was only 120 or 125, fine, or 110. I don't care. I said I honestly think it was 130 because I've been around fish like that. I've measured fish like that. I've weighed fish close to that. It's different silhouettes, but I'm completely fine. I'd be like, if somebody tells me it's 100 even, I'd be like, okay, I know it's not 100 even. I know it's way over than that, but I'm all right with that. And honestly, I haven't caught a 100-pound fish every year. Sometimes I go 2 years. Sometimes I catch 2 or 3 near 100 pounds in 1 year. But that's just how it goes. I mean, sometimes you just aren't lucky enough to get it in front of a fish of that caliber.
Right. And for the rest of us, be excited about if that's if that number for us is 40 pounds or you're
I am
15-pound channel catch or
I watch lives where people are catching this and they're excited about it. I'm excited about it.
Yes,
I'm like, yes.
Yeah. But if like I said, I know you've had a long day. We're approaching that 3-hour mark.
I am starting to crumble. I was up at like 4 o'clock this morning.
And fantastic job in the conference today. I see Haslife out there. Haslife, congrats on all the growth and awesome job out there today. You got the boat now and the merch and awesome family. Just keep it going, my brother. You're doing awesome.
Yeah.
And I want to thank everybody for coming in and just the knowledge that everybody wants to gain is just amazing to see how much people want to hear all the technical part, the science behind it is just amazing.
These guys are right. If I had one Red Bull, I could go till probably past midnight. One Red Bull, I'm flying again. But nope, I'm out. I'm down to the last bit of my diet orange soda.
We got it. Thomas had asked some good questions, so I'm trying to find. Apparently, there was a question that I missed here.
Let's see.
Oh, you're talking about the measuring, the formula for measuring?
The formula is length times girth. It's length times
length times girth divided
That's
by
what
800.
it is. It is divided by 800. You're right. I haven't thought about it for a while.
I think about it all the time.
Good. Yep. It is. That is exactly what it is. They used to have a different formula that wasn't like back in the 90s. It was a slightly it was actually a majorly different, but it proved to be not very accurate. This one's pretty darn accurate.
It's pretty close.
I've done it with fish that we've weighed and measured and girthed, and the weights are always very close, unless the fish falls out of the silhouette category. If as a blue goes, if the head is only 80% of what between the dorsal fin and the belly, and then it slopes down like this. If you got a gigantic head and it just sort of blocks down like this, it's off. It's it's light because that bone weighs more. It's all that crazy stuff. And that last fish that I caught was probably I know it was. It was the farthest away from a normal silhouette or a normal body style on any blue I've ever caught in my life.
Yeah,
it was an absolute big monster. I mean, it just was
You could tell it was an old fish. It was a fish. It had jaws that are just, I mean, literally the jaw is like that bigger. The jawbone was like that. Grabbing it. It was like that big, like the size of that.
Crazy. Well, if we have no other questions, we're going to let Mr. Tim get out of here. We're going to shut things down.
All right. I'm going to spend some time with my awesome wife, it looks like. So she can yell at me about the cookies, the cookie trays.
I tried to keep it from her, Tim. I tried to keep it from her.
No, you're not going to keep that from her. The bait's still on them. She's seen them already.
So that the blue. They were trying to figure out when Thomas was asking about that. Serena said, I believe that the blue that he caught weighed more than 57 pounds. And you'll have that because it's a different silhouette, like Tim was saying. There may be some where it just
yeah, there is. Yeah, it's that for that to actually work and be spot on. That silhouette's got to be what that whole equation was built off of. There's, because if you range it this way or range it that way, then all of a sudden your equation just doesn't go through. There's just too much error in it.
We thank you all so much for all the great comments. If you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, if you enjoyed the show tonight, please do that. I really appreciate it.
And I would like to say that I enjoy watching everybody else a bunch. I mean, Haz is just beaming with his new boat. I think it's great. I saw his wife in there with him. They were catching fish. I mean, Kelly Bullock's doing stuff. He says, Epic, I'm ready to fish the two rivers on Thursday, having what we had talked about today and your info on the conference. Awesome. That's going to be great. I hope it works out. And I can't even name everybody, but I try to watch as much as I can. Mike Chavez, love his stuff. I love watching your stuff, Stan, and your kids. It's awesome.
Thomas, that's for blue cats. That formula there is for blue cats. There's a different one for channels and flatheads, and everyone's got its own. It's based. That formula there was based on a blue cat silhouette and body shape.
Yep. And flatheads are off the charts goofy. They really are, because you can have flatheads with massive heads and then their bodies are skinny. You can have massive bodies with little smaller heads. I mean, flatheads is really tough on that. And I don't really try to claim a weight on a flathead anymore, because I got done weighing those a long time too. And I've hit in the 80-pound class and the 90-pound class before. So, it doesn't matter to me. I know that if a fish is of a certain length, they're going to fall into a certain category. So I really try to hit fish that are 55 to 60 inches long. And those are few and far between. If you're 60 inches, if you're trying to beat 5 foot on a flathead, that's a little rough. So I haven't done that in quite a while. But one of those pictures that I sent you earlier, actually 62 inches long.
Yeah, we had a whole bunch of pictures that I gotten from Tim, and we were going to try to, but I'm doing everything from the phone still, so we didn't quite get to do that today. But
something people can take to the bank, though, on a flathead is if you get somewhere near 48 inches on a river fish, you are somewhere near 50 pounds. 48 inches, 50 pounds. Now, if you're in a lake, it can be considerably heavier than that. It can be up to 60 at 48 inches long. But usually you got to get up to 50, 51, 52 inches to be a classic non-robust flathead to equal that 58, 60 pounds. I appreciate you too, and I like to see that stuff. Oh, I don't know about my own talk show. I might start one here pretty soon, but as fishing season gets closer, I'll be fishing instead of talking more. So hopefully I just get to actually have more video to work with, because I'd like to do a lot. There's a lot of videos that I could do without rehashing the same thing. I ended up kind of having to rehash the same thing this last fall.
Mike Chavez, you're gonna take me flathead fishing? Seriously? I'd take you anywhere you want to go. That's
There you go.
man, I tell you, that's just what this that's what this fishing community can do. Here's, you know, I look at him, like I said, he was the first video that I saw on YouTube about the James.
Yeah.
That's just that comment right there is just amazing what this community will do for you. But we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah.
My youngest little one wanted to say goodbye to everybody. Say goodbye.
Well, goodbye.
We're going to
Very
be
good.
taking everybody out of here. Appreciate y'all coming in. Please hit that thumbs up. Please hit the thumbs up before you leave. Thank y'all so much. And we'll talk to y'all soon. Oh, this Sunday morning, Stan 3 and I are fishing the James. We're doing and Little Smith's probably coming with us. We're doing a father-son kind of boat versus bank thing on Sunday morning. So y'all can look out for that. See us there. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so very much. And we'll talk to y'all soon.